Hi, good afternoon, good evening, good middle of the night to you and all that kind of stuff. It is Thursday, the 9th of January, 2025. That's twice I've got the year correct in a row, so I think up and running with that. This is Paul English Live. We're here on WBN for the next couple of hours. Welcome to the show. And we've got some rather juicy things, I suppose, to talk about tonight. Probably some frivolous things too, for those of you that tune in for the frivolity. I know I do. But we've got some serious stuff to look at because things have been getting quite serious here in jolly old England over the past year. 9 days, that is. Yes, hi everyone and welcome back. This is Paul English Live here on WBN 324. We're here every Thursday, 3 p.m. US Eastern, 8 p.m. UK time in the UK evening, obviously. Little fair notice warning, all shows on WBN are for people aged 18 and above because we sometimes get a little bit out of hand, not too out of hand. But that's just to let you know, everything is designed for a mature audience, even though, frankly, there's a great deal of immaturity coming up over the next couple of hours, few hours. I hope that's one of the reasons why I turn up for the show. And, of course, I'm joined by the usual crew. Now, you might not know who the usual crew are, but most they do. They're here already in the system. So welcome on board to the studio, Patrick, Paul and Eric. Good evening, gents.
Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening, Paul.
Good evening, Patrick. Good evening, Eric. Good evening, all of you.
Good evening, all.
Yeah,
yes.
No, it's good to have you back. And that week flew by. It did. It flew by. That's been a pretty quick week, actually, and it's been a beautiful day here because we always start off with the weather on this show because that's how we just get rolling. We just get rolling by talking about the weather. It's very, very cold out there. I came back about an hour ago from a little saunter and it's very, very cold. And everybody that I said, isn't it cold, to in the street, they all agreed that it was cold. It doesn't look that cold, but it bloody well is. I don't know what we're at. But for England, it's pretty cold. It's about 2 or 3 degrees down here or something. So very nippy indeed, considering how warm and balmy it's been up until this point. But a beautiful day here. I didn't have any cloud today. Eric, did you have cloud? Were you cloudy or were you sunny?
All.
No.
None at all. And no chemtrails. I looked up and I'm missing them already because you get so used to seeing loads of like spaghetti across the sky.
Yeah.
And when we have these clear days now, there's no spaghetti. Isn't it weird?
Yeah.
Did you notice any chemtrails?
No.
Chemtrail free.
No, I mean, we don't. We're on the main flight route from, we get a lot of air traffic coming straight from, let me get the one right, Gatwick, which is about 40 miles up the road from here. So a lot of the sort of Torremolinos traffic, we're all going to sunny Spain, all those sorts of jets. We get plenty of that kind of stuff because I think they shoot out from Gatwick and down this way. But no, sky was crystal clear, lovely, really just bloody cold today. But I don't mind that as long as I've got, the requisite 3 layers of underwear on. So, because you must wear the thermalactics to keep the vitals nice and hot and comfortable, I think. So that was all pretty good. Yeah, it's true. It's absolutely true.
Yeah, it's a family show for sure.
It is a family show. We like to talk about keeping important things warm and in good condition. Actually, there was something on TV over here yesterday which probably doesn't translate too well to a US audience. It was a little reviewer a gentleman, a comedian over here, used to be part of the Carry On crew called Kenneth Williams. And Kenneth Williams and Eric are basically two peas in a pod, I think, Eric, because, see, they are, really. They're two peas in a pod because Kenneth Williams' great forte, the thing that really amused him more than anything else, was really potty humour. And this was and he spoke in such a sort of sophisticated and very nasally sort of way. Anyway, I won't try and do any more of that because it's not very good. But rather witty chap, very eccentric, very unique, very sort of British. Really, you wouldn't find people like that, I don't think, in too many other places. But that was quite funny. That was quite good. Those of you that have caught today's show image, of course, if you're on the radio, you wouldn't have caught it. It's a picture of a lot of British political reprobates who, basically have been causing us an awful lot of problems recently. And somebody put together some kind of wonderful CGI, AI little sort of vignette of all these people. I mean, I'm just looking at it's got Keir Starmer. He's there. Rishi Sunak's there. Boris Johnson. We've got David Cameron, Gordon Brown, King Charles is there, Tony Blair is there, and what's the name? I've forgotten the name of the woman. What's the name of that Conservative woman, Eric? Her name's just completely run out of my head.
Theresa May.
Wasn't there a song about Theresa May, or was it Rita May? I can't remember anyway.
She may or she may not.
Oh, my, well, she may. Anyway, they're all looking suitably miserable, dressed up in their orange prison WEF uniforms. And the little clip that came through onto the Telegram group was fantastic, I thought. Really sort of captured a mood. Anyway, I think it's an image worth promoting because it touches upon a theme that's running pretty strong through the country over here at the moment. It's probably got across the pond, I think, to your side of the woods, which is that there have been some pretty chunky and juicy criticisms levelled at Keir Starmer and his government, courtesy of Elon Musk, who obviously doesn't really run any of those companies. He just spends all his time now sending out tweets, which is all part of some great theatrical play that's been written for the world so that we all get stirred up. But it is working, and it's to deal with a problem that's actually existed in this country for decades. It's being in many ways, I guess, represented back to the audio and visual consuming public as something new and alarming, and something must be done about it now. But something should have been done about it now, 20, 30, possibly even 40 years ago. This thing really started rolling in the last century when the whole Kalergi plan, let's call it that, the Richard Coudenhove Kalergi plan was put into practice to begin a process of swamping these islands with people who really shouldn't be here. Now, that's just got me in trouble with the police or something like that. But we can elaborate on that if we feel suitably safe to do so. But there's been nothing but problems with it ever since it started. And it's to do with Muslim rape gangs. Now, that is the strong way of phrasing it. What they're actually using in the media, they're talking about grooming gangs. Somebody obviously hit on the word grooming. I don't know when it came about, 20, 30 years ago. You know how they manipulate language to soften the blow, to make it not sound as bad as it actually is, to enable them to carry on doing the sorts of things that they want to do.
Yeah, it sounds a lot worse saying pedophile.
Well, it does. It does. And so, the accurate and precise use of language is always something that they don't like because, as we know, really those of us that have looked at lots of history, I suppose, particularly going back to the Russian Revolution, that's a pretty good one to look at. One of the first things they did, and that's 100 years ago, roughly, thereabouts, one of the first things those people started to do was to control language, and that controls thought, it controls the range of expression, it restricts people, there then become penalties for saying things a certain way, and this incrementally builds up over a few months, a few years, whatever it is, and pretty soon people are not in a position to sort of communicate freely and precisely using the English language as it was meant to be used to create sort of clarity and understanding and, what's that old phrase, the avoidance of all doubt. And political language, of course, is for the creation of as much doubt as possible. And it's very good at that. And it's able to achieve it to a great degree because of the bullying tools that they have available to them. And I've been on Elon Musk's tiny little communications platform, X. Not really following Musk so much, although it's difficult to avoid him because he's sort of quoted and retweeted or re-X'd by so many people. But I've been on there really looking at lots of comments about this that have been going on over the past week. And certainly comments from American communicators have been interesting. They're on one level appalled by what's taking place. The country is gone. They're saying, well, this country, from that perspective, has been gone for a long time. I don't think it is gone. What's actually occurring is that something that's been repressed, intentionally so, and controlled very heavily, for some reason, someone's decided that control is to come off. I'm always suspicious of why these things rise up at the time that they do, how they get the traction that they do. But the image for the show, with all of these participants in this process, they've all played a role ever since Tony Blair arrived in 1995 or 6 or whatever. These are the people that say all this nonsense like diversity is our strength. And of course, I think with a line like that, you have to try and understand exactly what they've just said. What they've actually said is when they've used the word our, they're not including all the people of Britain. They're just including their own coterie of traitors. I do view these people as traitors because they have communicated and enacted policies which are absolutely not for the betterment of life in these islands and for the indigenous people who are currently the stewards of these islands, even though we've been robbed of a great deal of the means of actually exercising stewardship here. So these people have never been viewed favourably, and that's an understatement. But there's something about the degree of hostility towards them that it's being amplified is, what word shall I use? Alarming? No, I'm not alarmed, but intriguing why it should be happening at this stage. Not that anything that Musk has said is necessarily untrue. You could say, well, what's this guy who's running a rocket company, apparently, what's it any of his business to be sticking his nose in here? I saw some quote today where he had said that his concern was for the future of Western civilization. Well, welcome to the club, Elon, if you actually really are genuinely wanting to be in it. Some of us have been concerned about this for decades, for all of the reasons which now suddenly the mainstream media are deciding to cover. But this hellish relationship between governments and media has been responsible for suppressing this topic for so long. And now that it's come to the fore, it seems to have created quite a hullabaloo. And I think the peak of this has been a decision. Excuse me, I've still got the rolling cough. It's the gift that will not stop giving. A decision yesterday. They took a vote in the Houses of Parliament. This is a place where all these buffoons meet, and the item on the agenda was: should they pursue an inquiry into this situation? And if you're not familiar with it, it's horrific. We're talking about the organised and systematic rape of thousands, if not tens of thousands, of English girls over decades. And the parties that are involved include political parties, because there's a great deal of political might wielded through their operations with all this stuff. A kind of hellish relationship between politics and sexual predatory gangsters. There's no other way to put it. It seems to be very much that's the case. Anyway, the vote was such that I think about 111 of the, I don't know how many there are in there that day, 111 of them or thereabouts said, yes, we need an inquiry. Not that I'd be holding my breath over inquiries. These are usually a great big theatrical farce as well. But at least these MPs did at least signal the right intent. However, 364 of them, including my local MP where I live, who is a Labour MP, i.e. Of the ruling party, they said, no, we don't want this thing inquired into. And it struck me that these 364 individuals have just committed treason or an act of civil war against the English and any other nationalities here, Welsh. I'm sure these things have been happening in Wales, probably in Scotland and Northern Ireland, possibly Ireland too now, as they get swamped with this organised immigration attack. So there's 364 of them that need to be not only put out of office, but really put on trial. Now, this is a sort of coy thing in a way for me to say. How do we exercise or bring about a powerful situation where that could happen? But it is serious. And of course, part of the psychological processing here is to sweep it under the carpet. And unfortunately, what occurs is that the public as a whole begin to ingest that as a sort of hidden command and begin to operate with their head bowed even further, knowing now, even though they've hidden it away in their head, that they're being governed by traitors and accepting it. This is part of this great sort of bamboozlement of the mind. Michael Hoffman has a good term for it, which I can't remember right now. But he's absolutely right. It's about the psychological processing of the herd, and we've been undergoing that for a long time. So that was just my brief sort of run through about what's been happening here in public communication spaces, i.e. the mainstream media, for the last few days. And certain characters are being positioned as possibly going to be the champions of recovery on this. Maybe it's going to be Nigel Farage in his garage is going to be rolled out in some capacity to lead us all back to this, that and the other. But the whole establishment basically stinks. And any MP that's voted to suppress this stinks worse than any stink you could possibly imagine. I'm just using gentle language to describe that. Anyway, that's my brief sort of resume, a summing up of that. And Eric, what with you living here? Yeah, sorry, Paul. Yeah.
Well, if anybody does speak up and make it known to the public that these 346 people should be called out on the carpet. Anybody that does that in a public venue, you need to watch what they do, because that would be a perfect political maneuver to get people to look at that person as a sort of savior, and you may just be getting the Antichrist. Just be careful.
Oh, I'm sort of aware of many of these sorts of threads, and many people that listen to this show or are close to this kind of inquiry space are aware of that as well, Paul, as I know you are. I mean, I didn't have time to dig it out today, but there is the famous, or is it an infamous document called The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, which is always disparaged as being a forgery. But that means it's a forgery of a genuine document. It's genuine, all right. And no amount of sort of anti-publicity against it by the usual mainstream media things is going to stop that. That thing came out, got on the internet, at least in a big way. In fact, Andrew Carrington Hitchcock, I think, published the entire thing in his book, The Synagogue of Satan. And if you haven't read it, people, you need to put aside some time to read it, because it's an introduction to the kind of mindset that's at work. And no amount of denial is going to change my mind about it. I'm sort of with Henry Ford on this. I think he said something like that. Whether it's a counterfeit or not, all I know is that what's in it is coming true. And one of the things that's in there's a section in it about moments, or a moment like this, where they would, I can't remember the exact language, but the gist of the narrative is that they say that, and I've mentioned this before here, and we will be mentioning it again because repetition's key with all of these things. You know, we need more airtime for these ideas, I think, or to get these points across. They said that they would effectively, the leaders that they had supplied to us, which is the case, these are all supplied. They're not elected, they're selected with great sophisticated theatrical election events and all this kind of stuff, but they're selected, all right. And what they will do is they will demean them or reduce their stature in the eyes of the public. In other words, they're going to make them look ridiculous intentionally, so that the crowd become utterly disgusted with the puppets that they've put there. And of course, these puppets are ripe for manipulation in the public space. They really are. I mean, many of them are they have an extremely dubious nature. I'm being very nice. I don't want to get too graphic about it. Many people will know that these people are not healthy, decent people. In many, many cases, we've used words like psychopath and sociopath to describe them. They're valid, I think, and there are varying degrees of sort of nutcaseness in there. Some of them, though, are downright evil and vicious and very dangerous people for all sorts of reasons. And anyway, what it says is there will come a time where they will demean them and effectively destroy them in the public, so that the public yearns, Paul, as you were saying, for the saviour. Who is going to save us?
Yes.
And a pre-prepared saviour or little group of saviours or some movement or whatever will enter stage left quietly at first and say all the right things, and all the agreement characters will wash up as well, starting as support for these people, and suddenly everybody will be swept off in another direction, which will be even worse than the one that we're currently in. So that is definitely a scenario that's been detailed quite clearly in the protocols of the learned, or elders of Zion. And I guess they are learned in the arts of cunning and deceit and all the other sorts of terrible things that seem to be basically the ground rules for being in politics these days. So, and of course, we've got your chap rocking into office, Mr. Trump, very soon, haven't we? How long before he rolls up his trouser leg and starts doing his business? How many days to go?
Oh, about another 10 days.
But you're giddy with excitement over there, aren't you?
Days, but literally the country is burning. We've got the wildfires that are going on out in California, which oddly enough don't appear to be affecting structures with blue roofs. I don't get it. I don't understand that. And it's pretty much bearing down on all of the more affluent areas of Southern California, like Hollywood and Brentwood and Pacific Palisades and all that, really close to where they were planning on building the Olympic Park, for the Olympics in 2028.
Right.
And then we've also got, the legislating bodies there or the administrative bodies there that are making it very difficult for insurance companies to make money. So they've basically been canceling fire insurance policies and pulling out. I mean, I'm sure that's a complete coincidence that all of these $1 million homes halfway up a hill are now uninsured and bursting into flames. I think if I was to go any further into that, people would call me a conspiracy nut. They would hand me a half a dozen rolls of tinfoil because they know that I've already used up every roll in the house with my hat. But I don't know. These are just things I think about. And these are like George Carlin says, these are the thoughts that kept me out of the really good schools.
I guess. Yeah, it's true. I want to come back to that whole thing as well. That's really useful for you to sort of drop that in as a flag earlier in the show, because we've been getting this stuff. When did it first? Was it today or yesterday it started? I don't know. It's been going 24, 48 hours or something. One forgets. Oh, yeah. I was thinking about. I mean, the last big burning I'm aware of was that the Hawaii one with all the houses that were blue that escaped.
Yeah,
it was
the one on Maui.
Mm-hmm. So was that one? How was that 2 years ago? Of course, that goes down all of these massive events go down the memory hole, don't they? They all go down. They're a massive disturbance at the time, but they just
not to mention the hurricanes that they had out east in the Appalachia Mountains that just devastated.
That's right.
They're supposedly, there could be thousands of people that are dead. That aren't even accounted for.
It's not important anymore. It's not covered on the news cycle, is it? It's just disappeared. Gone. Again.
There's winter storms that are right now bearing down on that very same area, threatening to drop 5 to 10 inches of snow on states that are absolutely ill-equipped for dealing with it, while people are still living in tents and unheated garages and things like that. And then you've got the northern wildfires that happened in California years upon years upon years ago, where literally the alloy wheels on the car parked in the driveway got so hot they were melted. But 50 feet away is the plastic trash container that is parked next to the tree that doesn't even have so much as a leaf singed on it. How did these fires start? How did a wildfire start and leave all the plastics alone and to leave the trees standing, but obliterated the homes and literally melted cars in the driveway. How did this stuff happen? And now they're talking about winter storms that are supposed to come over the central United States and working out to the east, where there's going to be bitter cold, deadly temperatures, the potential for widespread power outages, and infrastructure upheaval like never before. I mean, we've got all this stuff, and it's all on the plate for the 10 days prior to Trump's inauguration.
I know.
Coincidence?
Do you think
it is?
Do you think it's? I think it's just a coincidence, Paul. Obviously, just like all the other ones.
I think it's a prime example of a peaceful transition of power.
Yes. You're all right there. Yeah, it is. It's well, their playbook, the way that they work away at these disruptive events, and their ability to distract everybody. I mean, you know, I remember coming across this as an idea donkeys years ago, you know, that the mainstream media is used to distract people, but I never really bought into it when I first stumbled across it, because I personally didn't watch television at all. I couldn't imagine that anybody gets so distracted. I thought most people were just focusing and getting on with their lives. But of course, the way things have evolved, particularly this century, is that you're not supposed to get on with your life. The government's supposed to get on with managing every aspect of your life, including supplying you with the necessary dramas to keep you distracted and this, that, and the other. And of course, it's courtesy of phones and people's connection to their mobile phones. They've got a much more sort of intimate hold in terms of controlling people's attention spans and distracting them. It seems to be a much more subtle and sophisticated process than it used to be, and therefore it's probably way more powerful because people are voluntarily lugging their phones around with them. And yeah.
They said it before, diversity is our strength. When he says our strength, he's not talking about them and the people. They're just talking about them, because the diversity is going to be distracting and separating the people.
That's right.
And a house divided cannot stand.
I know.
Come on, people. See the writing on the wall, will you? God.
Just thought I'd throw in a nice cough there for everybody. But you're right.
I'm sorry. I got to
you're right. Whenever they say diversity is our strength, they're always referring to their own in-group. And yet you are supposed to believe that we're all together in this. And yet it's become crystal, certainly with this rape gang thing coming up, right? I think it's a much more serious penny has dropped with a much larger group of people. It's gone out to the next wave of people, not just people who have been keenly pursuing and focusing on this stuff, but lots of other people that have probably been slightly ambivalent about coming forward on it, and this, that, and the other now see it. I've got a clip here anyway. I was going to play a song, but I'm not going to, because I couldn't find one, which is a quick shout out to everybody in the chat. Welcome to everybody on Rumble chat. We're going out on Rumble and D-Live to get YouTube working, which sounds awfully pathetic, doesn't it? But there are certain sort of little technical issues that are getting in the way and driving me a little bit crazy. So one gets bored of trying to set all these things up. Not that I necessarily think there's much future in YouTube for this show, but you never know if we try. But if you're in the chat over on Rumble, hi everyone, great to see you all back again. And if you've got any song suggestions, throw a couple in. Make sure they're nice and beautiful and wonderful and are going to make us all happy, or something like that. And I might even play one. How about that? We will. Although I'm thinking of playing some old stuff that I haven't played for a year. There's nothing quite so bad about that. Anyway, David on the Telegram chat sent a little YouTube video over today. It's fronted by a Muslim gentleman called Raja Mia, and I'm going to play the first 3 minutes of it because it's very interesting and quite heavy what he has to say. And this is to do with some of those points I was mentioning 10 or 15 minutes ago. This connection between political parties, in this case the Labour Party, and sexual gangsterism. There's no other way to describe it. It's all to do with votes. Would you believe it? It's to do with votes. So I'm going to play the first 3.5 minutes of this particular thing. Just listen to this.
Children were picked up from outside school gates. Teachers knew. Pastoral teams went looking for children and picked them up from houses. And these are 14-year-old girls, white girls, 14-year-old working class, from houses with Asian men, men in their 30s, 40s, 50s. There's statutory safeguarding protocols that should have been followed. All of that went by the wayside. Of course, the classic takeaways and the nighttime economy went, but it was organised. It was organised. Shabir Ahmed, the ringleader of the Rochdale grooming gang, worked out of a community centre. He was selling children out of a community centre. He had a black book of his, and he was making appointments. All of it hidden. He was establishment. He also was a senior figure on the board of trustees of the Citizens Advice Bureau. These are establishment Asian figures involved in the systematic grooming and gang rape of working class white girls. And Shabir Ahmed was a prominent figure in the Labour Party, and there are councillors to this day in that council chamber who knew him. These were racially motivated crimes where the victims were white and considered to be an underclass by a metropolitan liberal, so-called liberal elite of whites who considered these white girls to be, and this isn't my words, making lifestyle choices. These are the words of the social workers. How can a 12-year-old girl make a lifestyle choice to be in a takeaway, on the top floor of a takeaway with 20 men downstairs waiting to take their turn? It's horrific. Once you go into the graphic details of what happened, it's horrific. Yet none of these people are arrested. None of these people have been prosecuted. Why? It's because working class white girls were a price worth paying. They didn't matter enough. In a town like mine, they didn't matter enough.
What did matter enough? What was more
votes,
important than that?
Votes, power. 100% votes and power. The girls were white, and these were racially motivated crimes. No doubt whatsoever. You take the definition of racism in any other context, apply it here, and every marker will be ticked. These were racially motivated crimes against white working class girls.
Which demographic is responsible for grooming and rape in these northern town scandals?
Predominantly Pakistani, occasionally Bangladeshi, almost exclusively Muslim. And I've been arrested for saying that, and I'll keep saying that. This town is run by gangsters. And the Labour Party are in bed with gangsters. And the reason why they're in bed with them is because they're reliant on the block vote. And I'm not on about wider gangsters, very specific Pakistani gangsters, Bangladeshi gangsters, the Islamists from the mosques. The Labour Party have made partnerships with the most despicable of groups, and they are reliant on these people to provide them with a block vote to stay in power. They've sold our children and they look the other way. These people peddle drugs, and if you go to every one of these towns, what you will find, and this is the bit I find really troubling, liberal white women. So I'm talking about, and I'm saying the word women on purpose. I'm like, part of me thinks these are girls who have been gang raped. Surely there's some sort of empathy with women, yeah? And these are liberal white women who are quite happy to forget all of that because it comes back to politics. All of this comes back to politics and the protection of the Labour Party and the dependency the Labour Party has on these block votes. My name is Raja Miah.
Raja Miah. Now, that's quite a telling communication. Whatever you may think of somebody called Raja Miah, that's one of the most direct and truthful expositions of what's really been taking place. And Exo's written that he is a brave guy. That is brave. He's running counter to his own people. It throws up lots of other questions for me as well. But are people aware that there is this relationship, literally as he describes it? And he's worked in central government as an advisor and done all sorts of other things. This comes out later on. I'm not playing the whole interview. There's about another 7 minutes to go, but we're not going to fill the rest of the show up with that. I think that was enough. Is anybody really aware of this? That there is literally this gangster relationship between political Marxists in the Labour Party who've tunnelled that thing out, and they're making use of people that they have enabled to come into this country as a block vote so that they can acquire power, and are quite happy to sacrifice white working class English girls so that they can get their power. I wasn't fully aware of that until I'd heard that. Eric, is that new to you?
No, it isn't. No, they've been buying votes for years. And really, looking at this situation, nobody mentions the word treason, because you did earlier. And I'm being quite serious here. I mean, I am passionately against the death sentence, but under the law, treason is treason. And although Tony Blair meddled with that law in 1997 and changed it to life imprisonment, that is null and void. You can't change that law. and it is still death by hanging if found guilty. Now, the question is, I'm pretty sure that one day these people, who's left of them, will have their day in court. I'm looking forward to that. But then who have we got skilled who could actually depart them from this world? Because Pierpoint is long gone now, and it's not an easy thing to hang a person. It's a very complicated and very technical thing to do. You don't get a lump of rope and whap it around a tree.
I'm sure,
No.
Eric, there must be some YouTube videos out there that could help with that, surely.
Well, how to lynch an MP.
So you want to
That's a
hang?
good one,
So
yeah.
you want to hang some gangsters? Because that's what they are.
Yeah.
These are gangsters.
Okay. Yeah.
They're gangsters either politically or they're gangsters even as sexual predatory rapist gangsters. But that's what's going on. It's gangsterism. How else are we to describe it? How else should we describe it?
The government is a mafia. I mean, I was looking at that chap. Was it History Debunked? He's got a YouTube channel. Was it Simon something or other? I can't remember his surname.
Yeah, he does.
And
He's awfully
it's a little
prolific,
bit
and
odd.
I'm very dubious about a
bit
lot
over
of the
the
things
top.
he talks about and the way he talks about
Oh,
things.
yes.
But yes,
he's
I am
very
aware of him.
very pro a country we're not allowed to criticise. And
Yeah.
But anyway, we won't go into that. And he reckons that Starmer and his sidekick are not human. They're reptilian almost. And I agree with him. They're ice cold. They are psychopath. He's got no compassion whatsoever. And all he does, he just says whatever will win votes. So, he took the knee about that chap who got shot. He's got no morality whatsoever. What he says and what he does are two different things.
Which
Yeah.
chap that got shot? Sorry.
Who was that? Oh, a couple of years ago, was a black chap who was a gangster and a cop in America.
Oh, you're
killed
talking about
him.
here in Minnesota, the George
Was
Floyd.
George Floyd. That's,
Yeah, they didn't
yeah.
shoot him. The police, the cop Derek Chauvin, he put his knee on his neck until he suffocated, and which was a tactic that he learned from the IDF trained police forces here. They go on
Whoa.
junkets, these police chiefs and trainers, and they learn
That's
those
right.
tactics over where they're using them on innocent Palestinians, and then they come back here and use it on us, and that's part of the problem. And then at the same time, they exploited that whole situation to make it seem like, the Black Lives Matter. It was used as a weapon, and not only that, it was in the middle of the lockdowns when they were locking us down for COVID, which everyone had been locked down for months, so they're all just ready to riot, more or less, all the people in the city, in the ghetto, and that's what ended up happening. There were lots of instigators in that too. You had these people like Amy Klobuchar, who's the senator here in Minnesota, who is going on junkets over to Ukraine, and so yeah, it definitely, people like Keir Starmer, it's just amazing how international that became and how coordinated they are. See, these parties, these Democrat and Republicans here in America, are all tied to liberal and conservative parties in Europe, and they have organizations like umbrella organizations that they all go to meetings, and they're all getting the same basic instructions regardless of the country. You'd think that we would be a little bit isolated from the politicians over there, but they all learn the same things, and they're very coordinated. And I think a lot of this grooming gang stuff is a means of blackmail. Like a friend of mine, Frederick C. Blackburn, has this idea that it's the 5 B's of the Meany method, which is blackmail, bully, bribe, banish, and bury. And that's what these politicians do. These grooming gangs are nothing more than honey traps for these politicians, it sounds like, from what that Raj was talking about, the Raj Amir clip he just played.
Yeah.
That they sit and they blackmail these politicians, so then you have a vote and it ends up being, what is it, 100 people to 364?
Yeah.
So you can just wonder those 364, how many of those are actually blackmailed into voting the way that they want.
Yeah, maybe it would seem that there's an even more filthy story to be revealed in how they are blackmailed. There's something obviously that they are fearful of, that they couldn't do what a normal, healthy individual would choose to do. No one would choose the decision that they chose. You wouldn't do it. Because it's literally saying, we don't care about the people that we are supposed to. We don't care about you. Yeah. Look at us not caring about you. We don't care. And yet the whole purpose, supposedly, of having representatives is that they are supposed to just do that, to care for the management of the nation, to make sure that it's healthy. Whereas this is clearly a decision that's not going to produce health. I mean, the graphic details of some of these events are truly terrifying. They're disgusting. And they're tragic. The fact that fathers have tried to defend their daughters, have been arrested for defending their daughters, with the police saying that the daughters had chosen this as a lifestyle. I think he mentioned it in this clip. This is insane. So how has the police force become this corrupted thing that's not a police force for us? I'm just stating obvious questions. I know we've discussed these before, and we'll keep on discussing them because they need to be sort of raised, and we need to be conscious about these things. You know, we slip into a comfort zone. I do too. You have to. You can't go around in a kind of mentally asphyxiated, agitated state all the time. It's not possible to do it. But we've currently got here, over the last 2 or 3 days in public discourse, an elevation of this stuff, and now 364 of them have decided that we are not to have even an opportunity, again, to see justice done. I mean, again, I'd be cynical even if it rolled through. But like I was saying earlier on, at least 111 of them did the right thing. 364 have been coerced by something. I mean, a normal person would never choose to do that. Not someone who is saying, hey, I'm your political representative here to actually fight the good fight on your behalf, so that the quality of your life is maintained and hopefully improved. Why would you make it's like saying, yes, we've voted to allow these 10,000 armed men into London to kill as many people as they want next week, and if you oppose that, you're a racist.
Can you tell me a little more about how Elon Musk relates to this? He weighed in on it. How did he do that?
He's been goading, let's use the word goading, but he's quite precise. He's not sort of, he's been having a go at Keir Starmer. That Starmer is a menace to the nation because of the decisions that he's making. Now, we all know that. We've known that ever since this puppet, the puppet du jour, got in. Because he's obviously compromised as well, isn't he? None of them, I mean, this is the thing that everybody needs to jump at. Of course, the media are not going to suggest this, but none of them are their own independent decision makers.
No,
and this is,
I got a question.
Yeah.
When did Richie Sunak, when was his term supposed to be up? I know that he called an early election. When would it have expired had there not been an early election?
I don't know. I don't follow these things about when he even got in. There's just a rotating door of complete mediocre arseholes, really.
Well,
Eric, you got any idea?
WWE.
Yeah. Have you got any idea, Eric, when he was supposed to see his term out? Was it this year, was it, or something?
I can't remember, I'll be honest with you. I really can't remember. I think it was this year. You mean Roland Rat, as he was called.
Yeah.
But really, I just can't understand it. I think people are too comfortable at the moment. They're far too comfortable. But I have noticed somebody said that the supermarket shelves appear to be empty. And the excuse now is farms can't find the staff, haven't got the staff to produce the products. I mean, I went along to the farm the other day to pick up some eggs. They're completely out of eggs. There's been a run of eggs, apparently. And I think people are worried about this new
bird flu?
Fake that's right, flu epidemic, which is going to affect animals.
Yeah, there's always something
so
like that going on.
They're playing that card, but that's the excuse. They haven't got people to actually produce the goods. And then the next one is the English are too lazy to do the jobs. That's why we have to have farmers.
Yeah, and that's like the Elon Musk thing.
People over.
It was just a week or so ago. He was complaining about how America doesn't have enough tech workers and that it's such a great thing that we're importing all of these H-1B visa Indians to program computers.
Yeah,
he's your pal now, isn't he? Isn't Elon the pal of the Americans? Right. My God. I know.
I have
He's just
neighbours.
restating what Trump has been saying.
Yeah.
So they sit in there. They have this hard line approach that we're supposed to applaud regarding immigration, and then they say things like that, and it just sends people spinning.
Which is, of course, part of the
People
plan.
are-
So the
that's
narrative department, the guys that are really writing the script, wherever they are, Chatham House, I don't know, CIA, all these guys talking to one another in their little sort of, coterie of psychopathic nonsense. They're spinning up a narrative that they've laid down, and the whole idea is to shift it. It's obvious that we're quoting things here. We've no way of actually proving whether any of this is true. Like you were just saying, Eric, the English are too lazy to pick vegetable.
No,
If you say
this is
that,
what
if
people
you say it to
saying.
anybody
I
for
don't
5
believe that.
years, it's like the repetition. If you broadcast that relentlessly for 5 or 10 years, literally, everybody will start to think that. It's completely not true. If you broadcast
agree
another
with you.
idea, we are the most hard-working, industrious people, and we get furious with lying politicians, and if you are one, you better watch out, then that will become the reality. It's to do with the words that are being allowed into circulation. It's like we were saying earlier, it's not about freedom of speech or the lack of it. It's about the control of speech. There will be periods where
thing
you
is,
do have
that's
freedom
right.
of speech, and other days where they'll suddenly change all the rules, and you've got to go to prison because you said the word peanut or something, and this is offensive to, whatever, peanut pickers or something. It's just nonsense, intentionally so. It's meant to be nonsense.
Several of my neighbours say that. Oh, the English, they're too lazy. And my attitude is, we weren't too lazy to fight in both world wars, were we? So, and to me, when they say that is an act of treason to say that, because that's like urinating on the graves of our ancestors. How dare they say that? We're extremely hardworking. Most countries are extremely hardworking if they've got the will to work. But the trouble is that I think most of the indigenous population are a bit like a puppy that's been kicked down and down and down all the time. And what incentive have people got to work? You've got to look at the incentive. There's no incentive. Because
No, there isn't. There isn't.
To the hill.
There is. Well,
Where's
even
incentive?
that, even the incentivization is a kind of theatrical sketch. It changes all the time, doesn't it? Under Margaret Thatcher, everybody goes out and you're all supposed to go and make loads of money, and a lot of people did. And the idea that people should own their houses is something that broadly I agree with. But I don't agree with them having to own them by paying a mortgage that's 3 times greater than the amount of money that they borrowed. All of these things are they basically switch the ideology to keep re-stimulating the transfer of money. And of course, we know where the bulk of it goes, and it doesn't go in your and my pocket, it goes elsewhere. You could argue, of course, that from a technical point of view, life is better. It is. We're living longer than we used to, even though psychologically we're under such a sort of bombardment all the time that past generations wouldn't really know what we're dealing with, to be quite honest. And in many ways, I'd rather live 200 years ago, although I probably would have been dead by now from a bullet on a battlefield or something like that. You just had different challenges. But it's the dishonorable and sort of psychological of the whole thing that rankles. It's like psychological and spiritual warfare all the time. And it's very destabilizing. It's distressing in a way that maybe physical wounds aren't. I don't know. I don't wish anybody physical wounds either, but it's a different type of warfare because they're so clever and they've had all their psychological research units, particularly since World War I, and blah, 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 blah. And for what? For what? I've mentioned here before, this idea of no doubt everybody thinks about action. What do we do? Should we be doing something? Why is there such a resistance to acting in those ways, which we're not going to talk about on air? You know exactly what. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. It comes up. It's not as if it's gone. It's not that the English or the people of Britain are a nation of wimps, but they are a nation of people that have been cudgelled psychologically and are trying to find a way to connect up with people that see this, and this is what's happening in this show and others like it, which is great. But I came across a little quote which I sent to the Telegram group earlier today. I want to read it out. The author is unknown, but I think it really touches on a very interesting and deep sort of psychological understanding. These are the sorts of this is like seeing the situation in the second and third degree, not just the first degree. Everybody sees everything in the first degree, the drama of the news. But what we're trying to do is to go to the second level and the third level to find out what the foundations for this disease are. But this is just a little thing that's written, but I think it's very powerful. It goes as follows. The most terrifying force of death comes from the hands of men who wanted to be left alone. They try so very hard to mind their own business and provide for themselves and those that they love. They resist every impulse to fight back, knowing the forced and permanent change of life that will come from it. They know that the moment they fight back, their lives as they have lived them are over. The moment the men who wanted to be left alone are forced to fight back, it is a form of suicide. They are literally killing off who they used to be, which is why, when forced to take up violence, these men who wanted to be left alone fight with unholy vengeance against those who murdered their former lives. They fight with raw hate and a drive that cannot be fathomed by those who are merely play-acting at politics and terror. True terror will arrive at these people's door, and they will cry, scream, and beg for mercy, but it will fall upon the deaf ears of the men who just wanted to be left alone. Now, although it's quite a dramatic way of putting it, I think there really is an excellent point in that. There is something, I've felt this a long time, that we talk about battles and warfare. I've never been in one, and frankly, I don't really want to be in one, to be quite honest. We've got a historical view of these things, and we go, oh yeah, and the guys that survived it, they all had, they had great tales to tell, and this is true, of course. And it seems to be an inherent part of our history, going back millennia, that these things spring up every now and again. But I think there's something very telling about that. There is a pressure holding people back that we still think, right to the very last moment, if only these people that are in charge would start to behave honourably and decently, we would probably even forgive them all their crimes if they got us back on the right path. But we have literally no evidence to suggest that they are ever going to do that. And I think what's happened over the past few days here is alarming for that reason. It's hitting something a bit deeper, a much deeper nerve with people than has been hit before. That's my kind of take on it, because I've seen a lot of excellent and incisive commentary from people all over the place who are furious, angry, and disgusted, the usual adjectives, but a little bit more than that. And if people go quiet with this inside them, it's almost like I think a bomb's going to go off. I'm not saying I want one to go off, but we're being set up. I feel like there's something intentionally being organised here, like as part of the latest psychological warfare. Yeah, there's something still not quite right about it. Why now? Why does it just happen now? Why are they doing this now?
That's right. It's like the farmers. Now, I went into a farm this afternoon, one that's just around the corner from me. It's walking distance, to get some eggs. Luckily, they've got a load of eggs. They're piled up with them. Strange. And I got talking to the woman there, and I said, I actually think that the farmers are being led by the nose, because the government have the best social engineers that our money can buy, and they win every time. And they want people to march through London. That is a data gathering exercise, and all of these marches have proved nothing. To me, the way forward is to ignore government and act like you look at it. Governments want you to have leaders. We're conditioned to have leaders. Why? Because then they can undermine those leaders and infiltrate and destroy whatever movements are against them. But we've got to be like a river where you block part of it off, you get tributaries, and these tributaries have leaders, and then they have sub-tributaries. In other words, wherever they try, that's right.
And like water.
That's right. And look at the yellow vests in France, who were very successful because they didn't have a leader. Then they got infiltrated, and the leader got in, and who knows about the yellow vests today? They've just disappeared, as far as I know.
Well, COVID happened. That did a lot.
Well, that's
to
it.
Disappear.
That they haven't re-emerged in the strength, I don't think, as they were. They might have done, I don't know, but we get no news about them. So, although anything on the mainstream really is a pantomime, so you can't really believe. But this is the thing. Why should we take notice as these buffoons that nobody voted for? And I've got a question for any politician that knocks on my door, and they don't knock on doors now because they're too frightened. And that is, one, do you believe we live in a democracy? Which they'll always say yes. So, well, could you please give me the exact date when we voted for multiculturalism, please? Please give us a date. If you believe in democracy, sure, you would have had a choice on that. So when was the date? And I know the answer because we never had a choice on it. And this is the thing. We don't live in this idea of democracy.
That's why we elect leaders, though. They're supposed to do the voting for us, isn't it? It's not really a pure democracy. It's kind of we vote for our oligarchs to lord over us, more or less. So
but
it's
need
a hybrid.
A leader? Do we need a leader? Because we're conditioned from school to always look for a leader. Well, if you want a leader, look in the mirror.
Well, I think we need. It's a complex question. Maybe we just can't avoid having that. Maybe we can't avoid it because people say in a group, a tribe, are at different levels of competence. Different levels of competence regarding growing of crops or wielding an axe against an enemy or have greater physical endurance than other members of the tribe. Certain qualities lend themselves to being able to command the respect of other men. It used to be the guy who was the biggest and the strongest and swung the axe the most and took the most heads off. Understandably so. We would want people like that in and amongst our number if our tribe was attacked. That, from looking at history, this seems to be what's always taking place. And of course, you then get the rise of sophisticated civilizations, which have developed in a much deeper way. And I think the fundamental management of civilized sort of organization was known thousands of years ago. Okay, the form of the way that we live now with what's the latest toys, AI and crypto and all this kind of stuff that's taking place have changed the form of it, but the essence of control remains that. And of course, the types of people that control us now are the more cunning, developed and attuned psychopathic mentality that, you know, my sort of take on it today, it evolves all the time, is, hey, I come from a long line of guys and gals that have ruled you lot, and we're never going to stop doing that. Why? I don't care why. I don't think it's a logical thing for them. It's just, it's like a behavior pattern. It's a bit like a lion goes around lioning. You can't sort of talk it out of it. Will you stop eating those wildebeest? No. Well, I'm a lion. That's what I do. Well, that's what these people are like. We are leaders, they think. And of course, the whole idea of democracy is that somehow we can change it. I mean, democracy is a sham, obviously. It's just a great theatrical deception. And why was it introduced? In a way, to undermine the authority of a natural king. I mean, we have to remind ourselves that we have had good ones. Henry VIII wasn't one of them, by the way. I was just seeing something today where they're looking at the amount of people that Henry actually sent off to be killed. It's estimated somewhere between 50 to 70,000. That's an unpleasant man, isn't it? What happened to him? Who was controlling him? Apparently he was a great guy up to about the age of 24 until he got thrown off a horse or something and started getting fat. You know, all of so it's the influences behind the throne that we never get to see. And of course, they're so strong, those influences, they never want us to see them, but we know that they're there. This control of a group psychology, group agreement at these higher levels, these people have become murderous because they've got so much cover that they never get caught. Like the whole of the courts themselves have been, you know, roped into their cause. And it's almost like the more theatrically they proclaim things like, you know, the integrity of British justice, the more you know you're in the presence of the purest, finest bullshit you ever heard in your life. It's pure theatre, and it's very effective for controlling the minds of people to think that this is the place I'll go to a court and I'll get justice there. Anyway, it's big stuff. I'm going to play a song now. I'm going to play a song because I think we should play a song. And this is in keeping. This is also in keeping. I played this years ago, actually. This is a Van Morrison song, Western Man. And the lyrics are pretty apt for what we're talking about. It's about what happened to you and why weren't you paying attention and all that kind of stuff. We're going to listen to Van Morrison for about 3.5 minutes, and then we'll be back. You listen to Paul English Live here on WBN 324. Here's the song.
Western man has no plan since he became complacent. Stopped believing in himself, let others steal his rewards while he was dreaming. While he was dreaming, others were scheming, doing deals behind his back. Now Western man is adrift and under attack. What happened in between? Now there's no other bite of the cherry unless he's prepared to fight. Start on a new path to freedom, new path to freedom. The horse has bolted from the stables, the lunatics have taken over the farm. Caretakers have taken over the main house, clandestine meetings in the forest. Going back to the way it was, now it just seems be impossible. Western man has no plan. He stole that while he was dreaming. There's no other bite of the cherry, unless he's prepared to fight. Start on your path of freedom. Horses bolted from the stables, the lunatics have taken over the farm. Caretakers have taken over the main building. The governors have gone over the wall, clandestine meetings in the forest. Not going back to the way it was. Western man has no plan since he became complacent. Stop believing in himself and let others steal his rewards while he was dreaming. While he was dreaming. While he was dreaming, 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 others were scheming, scheming while he was dreaming, others were scheming while he was dreaming. Others were scheming while he was dreaming.
3-4 radio, South Africa.
Attention all listeners. Are you seeking uninterrupted access to WBN 324 Talk Radio despite incoming censorship hurdles? Well, it's a breeze. Just grab and download Opera Browser, then type in WBN324.zil. And stay tuned for unfiltered discussions around the clock. That's WBN324.zil.
The views, opinions and content of the show hosts and their guests appearing on the World Broadcasting Network are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of its owners, partners and other hosts or this network. Thank you for listening to WBN 324 Talk Radio.
Yeah, thank you. You listen to Paul English Live. We're here every Thursday, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. US Eastern, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. in the UK, and a bit longer for those of you that are tuned in on Rumble and a couple of other outlets, Radio Soapbox and elsewhere. Welcome to part 2. That was quite a heavy, chunky first hour, I think, about as heavy and as serious as we've done here for some time. But these are heavy and serious times, I think. Let's not lighten the load so much, but let's change focus. I'd like to go back to really what's happening out in California with the fires right now, just to change tack. And what is, you American types, Patrick and Paul, What's the latest there? What's the latest hullabaloo? I've got a few stories that have floated across my desk about the completely artificial, of what it would appear, sort of establishment of these fires. There's something certainly not genuine about them. And I saw that absolutely ludicrous interview with the mayor of somewhere, this bint who literally wouldn't say a word, sort of, all part of the mess. So what's the latest on that right now? Because what time is it out there now? 1 o'clock in the afternoon? 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, it's got to be about
Yes.
that. Pacific time. The mayor, I believe, was out in Africa, has been away from California and out in Africa, attending something in Ghana for the inauguration of the new president. So she had,
Yes.
she's oblivious to the whole thing. And then they had the police. There's a lot of talk about the fire chief, who's some lesbo, DEI type person that got in and just oblivious to everything as well. It just sounds like incompetence all around. Otherwise, it was planned incompetence. The deck is shuffled and staged.
This morning, I also heard something about them diverting like $14 or $17 million from the fire department's budget. Something like that for
and then the
DEI.
equipment being sent to Ukraine in the past few years.
Equipment being sent to the Ukraine.
Yeah.
Funds for firefighting diverted to their left-wing liberal DEI inclusion diversity bullshit program. While California burns.
Yeah, and I was listening to Jeff Rentz talk about a lot of the people that had homes go. These homes are all these Hollywood celebrity types like Billy Crystal, James Wood.
Yeah,
and I'm sure there's a whole list of others that I have no clue about, because it's that whole area is just full of rich homes being burnt down. And
I'd heard that a lot of the fire hydrants. Have you read that thing that many of the fire hydrants, like hundreds of
because
them,
the water was diverted for salmon fishing for the Indian population. That's one I heard. And then another was that a lot of the water was being diverted into the ocean from the rivers because they wanted to protect smelt, which is a type of small fish that people, they have smelt fries around here where it's like a fish fry. It's just a small minnow fish. Mm-hmm. And they closed down about all 4 dams there, so there's no water.
Fab.
Right, there was no water to fight the fires. Okay.
Yeah. And
there was no money to fight the fires. There was no person in authority with the wherewithal or skill or ability to fight the fire there. The whole inclusion bull thing. The whole thing smells.
And Biden was just there, and they shut down the air traffic. I think it was a couple days ago.
Yeah, so they couldn't do the airdrops.
Have they indicated what caused this? Is that this is what has started it? Have they come up with their story
for heating themselves?
Homeless people getting cold, building little fires, 100-mile-an-hour wind whipped up, and next thing you know, Southern California is ablaze. It was a homeless guy.
So it's a homeless guy, but the homeless guys must be lighting fires every night because it's cold out there. So it's the wind, is it, that did it? They're saying it's this plus the wind. If it hadn't been the wind, it would have never
100-mile-per-hour winds, which doesn't help. I've only seen one video, and it's a popular video that's going around of these 2 guys in a house with their dog, and it just looks like a bomb is going off constantly because of the flames. And apparently he had cut down enough shrubbery around his house that it didn't touch his house but it's just a dramatic video. If you see it, it's just
Inflation is all
crazy.
Yeah.
So who knows what actually caused it? I mean, these things happen all the time. It could have been a controlled burn that got out of control, or it could have been intentional, for all we know.
Well, it is another instance where everything with a blue roof apparently survived.
Is that so? Is it blue roofism again? All is well if you've got a blue roof. Is that what you're saying, Paul? Yeah?
Yes. Remain calm. All is well. All is well.
So this is blue roofism chapter 2. First Hawaii 2 years ago, and now it's happening.
Yeah.
I'd not seen anything about the blue roofs. I didn't realize that there was a blue roof conspiracy taking place again.
Okay. In full disclosure, I did get that information secondhand, but I'm sure it'll come out eventually. So don't quote me on that. It's okay. Do a little bit more research. This program is not intended to treat, diagnose, prevent, or cure any liberal mind warp. Listeners are urged to exercise their own due diligence and research any information presented here. It's all good.
So the idea, that's one of the ideas that's floating around is that this is sabotage by the Democrat Party to cause as much disruption as possible prior to the arrival of Mr. Trump to lead you to the promised land. Is that a story that's floating around over there?
Could be, and it's just a mere coinky-dink that they are burning areas that are basically earmarked for like the 2028 Olympic Park. I mean, that's the exact area where they're going to be building Olympic Park.
And is there concern, therefore, that if the 2028 Olympics were to take place, it would be under Donald's management and he would get all the reflected glory of that, and they don't want him to have it? Is that part of it? Do you think?
Well, no, they've got a lot of land that they've got to clear with a lot of really expensive
I'm hearing that.
I see. So it's a bit like the fire of London. You want to redesign London? Let's burn it down and say some baker set some fire off.
So what I hear about the fire, what I hear about the fire is that 5 people have been killed, and it's burned 20,000 acres and leveled 2,000 structures, and there are 130,000 people evacuated. That's what I've got for right now.
Well, 5 dead is...
That's the LA Times.
Very low, I suppose, considering the scale of the whole thing, if that's true.
But yeah, they had evacuations, so that helped. But evacuating 130,000 people is no small feat either.
No.
Right. Especially in California, even though they do have 13 lanes going each way.
Well, it's the second largest city in the USA after New York City. So it's definitely probably not managed the best way, because they should have seen it coming. And
I don't think it was managed at all. I mean, they've had, okay, let's look at what led up to it. They've had a drought. Okay. We've been dealing with all kinds of weird weather. Okay. They have a drought that's unnatural. Okay. And then they've got insurance companies that are having problems with legislating bodies and administrative bodies, making it possible for insurance companies to survive by raising their rates. Well, the insurance companies couldn't do that. They were regulated. So they decided, okay, well, if we can't make a profit, we'll just pull out. Okay, well, guess what? How many of these homes that are burning right now do you think are not covered by insurance? I mean, we're talking millions of dollars in properties. Even if you look at just one, I'm sure you could find $1 million property halfway up a hill.
Then there should have been an incentive for them to clear out the fire hazards beforehand, and I
They
can
should
only
have, but
speculate
they're
about
not
why they didn't.
allowing. But there are what is 6 miles or 60 miles of forest that started burning, and there were absolutely no fire breaks in that national forest. There were no fire breaks whatsoever. So the fire started at one end and went all the way through.
Which they're again planning. It could have been intentional. If they
Exactly. And
purposely
this was the
chose
fire
not to
before.
make the
This
fire
was
break.
the earlier Northern California fire. No, nothing about this smells right. Nothing.
No.
Not any part of it.
No. No, it doesn't. It feels exactly the same as the Hawaii thing. It's obviously in a different location, but it still feels artificial. And the sort of bumbling communication is not the way your nation would have responded 30 years ago. It just isn't. It's like all the governments respond to all these situations in a weird way. That's obviously by design, no matter what the issue may be, whether it's the Muslim rape gangs over here, your fire, or whatever's coming up next week. Like we have a new thing every 2 weeks, don't we? 2 or 3 weeks, some great big thing has to be paid attention to, and then it goes down the toilet.
This could have been
again.
prevented. That's the thing. And like the song goes, it never rains in Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
And for the last 2 years, there hasn't been rain to fill the reservoirs that they need. And they didn't plan it right for filling the other, taking advantage of the dams.
Mm-hmm.
And diverting water to this place. It's obviously incompetence, or it's planned incompetence by some devious people. But I don't underestimate people's stupidity, even in high positions of government. That these people just didn't do it because they're lazy or they're just stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, what could Paul was saying, they have the Olympics coming, so maybe they wanted to clear it out. Maybe the people are so devious that they would do something like that.
I wouldn't put it beyond them.
Of
course they would do that. They would.
Of course they would. I have an answer for anybody that thinks that anybody in government is actually looking out for the people or is actually following their oath of office to the Constitution. I have the perfect response for them.
That's such a crock of shit.
I think it is.
There
you go. It is.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, it is a crock of shit.
We'll have to get you one of those, Eric.
People
You'll have to
believe
get
it.
Paul to get you one.
Yes. But what, a crock of shit? No, thank you. I don't think I'd like
No,
shit.
we don't want that.
Or deliver through my letterbox. That could be a prize, couldn't it? Star prize. Get some manure delivered straight through your letterbox. First prize. I think that was Monty Python, wasn't it?
I was just told they did get rain. The problem is they didn't have reservoirs set up to collect the rain.
It's just not special.
Yes.
I think it's just all of these sorts of the way that the thing's handled with these really what are feeble excuses from the political class for all of these things. It's also feeble. There's nothing coherent about it, which means it's obviously pre-planned. It's meant. Is this part of this process of displaying, back to the electorate just how stupid, bumbling, and useless your government and governors are? I mean, not that you need a degree in rocket science to work that out, but it definitely seems part of it. It is. It's just artificial and weird. We've just caught the news footage over here in the morning, our time, which is like 9 o'clock in the morning for us, which is 1 a.m. over there, just showing the sheer scale of it, which from the brief bits I've saw it's enormous. And the idea that anything would get to that size is odd. It's like I said, it's not the sort of thing that would happen in America 30 years ago. Is it? Maybe it did. I don't know. Maybe you did have fires that big that got completely wacky.
Oh, they've had these for probably centuries.
So you think they'd know how to deal with it, right? But as you're saying, they don't know how to deal with it, or they've decided to step down. They've stepped down. That's
stupidity.
Yeah.
Don't underestimate stupidity, because it's just it's how it works, especially when there's corruption in government. California's got to be one of the most corrupt governments out there.
Really?
And the way they charge for every little thing that they tax you on, and it's all going into pockets of gangsters.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they have to, I would say my first thought of it is it's incompetence, and the second is it's devious incompetence.
Yeah.
Don't forget gruesome Newsom.
Well, that's the weird thing about Newsom, right? He was supposed to be the Democratic candidate that took over for Biden because Biden dropped out of the race back in the summer. There was speculation because Biden had announced it, and then right away everybody's like, "Oh, it's going to be Newsom." And it turned out to be Kamala Harris. Well, Newsom, he's an odd duck. I think he's Nancy Pelosi's nephew, and then he was married to a woman. His wife divorced him and then married Donald Trump Jr. So figure that out. It's such a crazy situation we have in American politics, and these are the best of the best that democracy can bring us. Out of 300 some million people.
And I'm not talking about a Wiener Schnitzel.
I mean, I don't know if I'm going to upset Americans, but none of us here look at America as a bastion of sort of integrity. By the way, we don't look at our own country as a bastion of integrity either, nor the European Union, nor any of them. Maybe Putin by default is the least worst of the lot, but even then, don't hold your breath. You've no idea what kind of game is being played here. It's difficult. I mean, they want to, as we said, they want to throw up little heroes that we're supposed to go and connect to. I see that, Nigel Farage, apparently Elon Musk has had harsh words with him or something, thinking he's not the guy to lead reform. What is all this? Really, what's going on? I mean, Musk obviously doesn't. Someone pointed out in the chat, I can't remember if it was Billy or someone, he obviously, or Steve, I can't remember who wrote it, so my apologies, but
by the way,
he obviously doesn't run his companies.
Time.
He's too busy tweeting. I mean, what does he actually do? I mean, he's fake.
He's a puppet. Yeah,
they're all fake. He lasted
by the way,
quite well.
I can't get into your Rumble chat. I try to post something in Rumble chat, and it gives me an error. I've reloaded it a few times.
Well, it's you, Patrick. You're a troublemaker. Look at all these other people firing messages.
I was having the same problem on Eric's show the other day.
It's you.
Last couple,
It's you. He's obviously Wisconsinitis or something. Something's taking place out there. Whacked out. I would suggest you log out and log back in again, but then what do I know? But
yeah, could be.
Yeah,
sorry,
absolutely.
Patrick. You're the common denominator.
Yeah.
We both got locked out of the studio, didn't we? That was last week, wasn't it? Patrick and I got locked out of the studio. We couldn't come back in. This was Rumble. I literally could not get back into the studio. I think the software is a bit dodgy, actually, on the Rumble studio.
Anyway, jumping over to another comment from Elon Musk recently, which I stumbled across or came through the the Telegram chat. This is in the this is sort of another one of these sort of bizarro statements one would think. This is in the Daily Express, express.co.uk. Has it got a date on it? Probably somewhere. Can I see it? Tuesday, so just a couple of days ago. The article reads, Elon Musk names the world's biggest problem as China and India lose combined 773 million people. Elon Musk has labelled population decline the greatest threat to humanity, as China and India are expected to lose a combined 773 million people. I'm hard-pressed to know where are they going to lose them anyway? I mean, do they just sort of wake up? Where have those people gone? Do they just misplace them or something? A bit like I do with my car keys. I mean, me losing my car keys, that's serious. But this is just a bit, isn't that an odd thing? Yeah, Paul.
We're talking about a combination of decline in infertility, decline in the childbearing age, young adults, and the death of the aging population. What they're doing is they're talking about the cov. They're talking about the cov. It's taken out a bunch of people, and there's going to be an inevitable decline of the human race globally, because that was their plan. They was looking for that from the beginning. I'm telling you.
Well, yeah, it's as if he's been placed now. I know, like, come out with a contradictory narrative. Obviously, you know, they always talking about the reduction of population. We've got the Georgia Guidestones, which fortunately haven't been burnt down yet. Georgia's not on fire, I assume, not yet anyway.
Oh no, they've been blown up.
Are they? Were they blown up? Were they? Oh, right.
The Guidestones are no more.
Are they?
Yeah, that was during COVID.
Really? Someone blew them up, did they?
Yep.
Nice.
They blew them up.
Yeah.
There's video of it even. You can
Hey,
see
by
it.
the way, this article as well has got these guys in that are in loads of articles, experts. I've got to meet these experts. It says, experts have for many years agreed that the world is set on a path for future population decline. Okay. Though there is disagreement about how fast this process will be and which countries will be affected the most. Why is this an issue? I don't understand. I don't understand why it's an issue. Is it... Are they arguing? I mean, I've got a thing by Buckminster Fuller, you know, the guy, he wrote Critical Path, which is a wonderful book. And I think he did some calculations to say it would be relatively easy with proper organisation. Don't hold your breath on that. But with competent management of affairs for the planet to easily carry 50 billion if we wanted. I don't understand what the point of it all is. It's as if there's a frenetic economic activity thing in place all the time. Always some alarming story has to be communicated. I mean, I don't know what the population of the world was in the late 1800s, but it might not have even got to 1 billion by then. I mean, it's obviously increased rapidly over the last century because of technology and the ability to produce more food and to transport it to where the mouths are in a timely fashion so that people can eat regularly. Why would it be an issue? I really don't get it. There's a couple of little comments in regard to it as well. The article, it says, gives no... I'm not going through the whole thing. It was just the headline that was really worth mentioning. It says, the article gives no reason why a reduced population is a bad thing. I would think the opposite, especially in third world countries that can't blah, blah, blah. And someone else writes, for us here in the UK, this article seems like a sick joke. Population decline? Not. Would it be such a bad thing if the world's population stagnated or dropped slightly? I mean, maybe it's bad for them because it's isn't this the source of all his IT workers or something? Is that what he's concerned about as he ships them and pushes them all over the place? It's a sort of manic narrative of everybody having to move around to fulfill economic job roles and quotas and all this, that and the other. And this is contradicted by the claims they make for AI, which is that it's going to reduce the requirement for work all over the place. And then there was that, who's the guy that heads up BlackRock? Larry Fink, is that his name? I think it is, isn't it?
Yes,
I think that's his name, yeah.
Yeah, Larry Fink. It's
Another person who's aptly named.
It really is.
He's a shill for George Soros.
You don't say. Really? But Larry, good old Larry, was talking the other week about saying that the countries that would really do well are the countries whose population is declining because there would be room, as it were. I think part of there were many points he covered, not that I'd necessarily recommend you go off and listen to them. But one of the points he was making was that the countries with lowering populations, there'll be more room for the implementation of AI systems and automation to automate things. Now, these things always, basically, I think you can argue these things either way. I never think it's about the technology. I always think it's about the intent behind it. I think that's true of everything.
That's what they're doing in Gaza, though. They're using these AI systems to go over there and target people so that they can kill them and wipe out the land, everything on the land, and make it into nature preserves or casinos or whatever they have in mind. Luxury resorts.
Well, I'm not sure what the study was, but I heard not too long ago that every man, woman, and child on the planet could fit within the territorial borders of the state of Texas and have a few square feet to themselves. The entire global population could fit in the state of Texas. I don't think population is a problem. I think the fact that they have lowered the sperm count and lowered the fertility rate to such an extent that the population numbers are going backwards. People are dying. There aren't any new birth certificates being issued that can be treated as warehouse receipts backing the bonds that are opened based on what the child, the baby, is expected to earn through a lifetime of work.
It's probably that,
It's
probably that.
It's like a roller coaster. It's a roller coaster. Let's bolster the population so we have all these birth certificates and we can back these bonds for this totally huge albatross of a debt monetary system. Crap. Well, let's see, we've got too many people. It's costing us too much to feed them. So let's kill a bunch of them off. Oh, damn. In about 25 years, we're going to have to switch gears and we're going to have to build the population again. But the good news is we'll get a brand new batch of birth certificates and a brand new batch of bonds. Yay!
It's the game player. These people obviously are very good at playing the existing game and want it to carry on. So anything that threatens the continuance of the game is a bad thing. I think that's probably going to be a key part of it. They've got this system that they've been running for a long time. By the way, if anybody that's not quite fully up to speed with what Paul was just saying, by way of sort of paring it down, when babies are born, their birth certificates are valuable because governments use them to trade the expected tax contribution from that baby on financial exchanges. A more silly and inhumane and daft arrangement it would be hard to imagine, unless, of course, you're an international financier and love the idea of controlling the economic life of everybody on the planet because, for their own safety and all that kind of stuff. I keep coming back to the fact that we're operating in a game that was designed in prehistoric times, and that to a great degree the actual benefits that could accrue from modern technology, if I'm just impartial about it and don't get all het up and wound up about AI, which does slightly irritate me, but that's because I'm a sort of steam-driven Luddite, but we can't actually really find out what those true benefits are because they're always filtered through this financial system, which nobody, certainly the politicians, don't understand. Rachel Reeves or whatever she's called, I saw something, was it yesterday? They're about to do a massive bond issue, which means that the government needs to raise lots of money. So we are told, maybe they well do, according to the rules of the game. And they'll need to do this because some bondholders who bought things 20 years ago or 10 years ago are about to come running through the door and they want their money back. So it's just a great big pyramid scheme and all this, that, and the other. It's simply that the management of the earth then falls into the hands of the bean counters. And it's the bean counting system that's really the key part of the problem, as we touch upon here repeatedly and will continue to do so, because we have to still find a way to get that overthrown. It's whether as men we decide to go to war and destroy all our previous lives, as the anonymous quote was talking about there. So
the United States has been in the hands of the bean counters since 1900 or thereabouts, since the 1900s for sure. 1933 was when they turned the first screws, and 1950 something with the IRS code, that was when they finished turning the screws. And now we're just dealing with trying to get these rusty damn screws out of the hinges.
I know. Listen, I got a little clip here. Actually, it's not that little. It's about 5 minutes long. I'm going to play the whole thing because it's kind of appropriate given what we've just moved on to. This is from Greg Reese, who I catch every now and again. And it was released the other day. Do you love him? Okay, well, then you're going to like this then. It's certainly from him. January the 6th. It's called Debt Jubilee. And we've been talking about Debt Jubilee, haven't we, Patrick? Quite repeatedly. And all of you here, we've been talking about the complete remission of debts, which is a biblical law supposed to happen every 50 years. This is called Debt Jubilee, Bitcoin and the Digital Age. The first bit's a bit of fluff, I think. Let me just make sure that it's actually, you're going to be able to hear it because I had to mute it. It was about to play. Let me just unmute that. Here we go. Let's listen to this. About 5 minutes long, but I think it'll give us quite a bit of food for thought. As I said, I think the first 30 seconds to a minute is a bit of fluff and then it kicks into it. Here we go.
Never sell your Bitcoin, right? The Trumps have been very bullish on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency.
Again, it's coming. Everybody knows it's coming, and the people who don't embrace it early are going to ultimately lose.
Eric Trump recently met with Michael Saylor at Mar-a-Lago, who has been proposing a plan to preserve U.S. dollar dominance by utilizing Bitcoin as a reserve.
Here's the strategy. You dump gold, demonetize the entire gold network, you buy Bitcoin, you buy 5 million or 6 million Bitcoin, you monetize the Bitcoin network, and you just define digital currency as the US dollar backed by US dollar equivalents in a regulated US custodian. Replaces every currency in the world with the dollar, which the US controls, and it siphons off hundreds of trillions of dollars of 20th century capital assets and half of the capital in the rest of the world. And most 75% of the capital of our enemies gets siphoned into Bitcoin. And the big beneficiary is the US government. And after that, every US company, because we're the ones that own and run it.
Trump has been rebranding the North American Union as Canada being the 51st state of the United States. And Justin Trudeau has now resigned, leaving a clear path for Pierre Poilievre to make significant changes.
We haven't really seen a lot of concrete proposals from Mr. Poilievre. I mean, he did make one. That's not fair. You're right. He had one great opportunity for people to opt out of inflation. He recommended this last spring. You can opt out of inflation if you invest your money in Bitcoin. Yeah. No. He stayed up late, watched all sorts of YouTube videos, and came to that conclusion. He said that himself.
We're going to buy this shawarma with this Bitcoin. Send.
Done. Yep, I got it.
You got that? Guys, we did it. We bought the shawarma with Bitcoin. So that is my plan, to enable Canada to become the blockchain and crypto capital of the world.
Debt slavery has existed on Earth for thousands of years, which is why a cashless society has been of great concern to freedom-loving souls. In the earliest days of civilization, farmers would borrow against their harvest, and if the harvest failed, the farmer would lose everything and become a slave until the debt was repaid. Eventually, the amount of slaves with nothing to lose becomes a threat to those in power, and so debt jubilees were issued at regular intervals as a matter of public stability. The Bible describes a debt jubilee that would happen every 50 years as an economic reset, a year of liberation and restoration where debts are forgiven, land is returned, and slaves are set free. The ancient Greeks had debt jubilees to avoid violent revolutions and uprisings. As economist Lynn Alden wrote, it wasn't out of kindness that rulers did this. It was a solution to a societal math problem. If you run a computer long enough, eventually it starts to work less efficiently. Refreshing the power and rebooting the system gets the computer running smoothly again. A Jubilee year has been celebrated every 25 years by the Catholic Church since 1300. But the need for debt forgiveness has been avoided by the current debt-based fiat system and the Uniform Commercial Code, which has been running for nearly a century, and it is at its end. 2025 is a Jubilee year, and Pope Francis has called on affluent countries to forgive debts and to address ecological debt, which sounds like a carbon tax. The emerging system is much more than just money. It is a cataloging system where every person and every piece of property can be connected via a digital identity. This is called tokenization and is set to replace the birth certificate and every other document of title in the real world. Biblical prophecy Christians are saying that this is the mark of the beast, but there is no need for a mark when facial recognition will do the job. And if it comes with debt forgiveness and universal basic income, then those who fight against the system will be seen as terrorists by the public.
What's going to happen is the US dollar is going to be the world reserve currency, and it's going to run on billions and billions of mobile devices. And the digital asset that underlies that currency is going to be Bitcoin.
Cool. Hey, great. So should we all move to America? It looks like you're going to be running the show, guys.
Yeah, well, Bitcoin is said to have been started by Alan Greenspan.
Yep.
As part of the plan all along. I assume that's what's happening.
I think so. Not that Japanese kid Satoshi in his basement eating noodles. Not him.
Nope.
No. Really? Well, I'm shocked. I never bought the originating story when it came out. So hasn't it just gone through $100,000 supposedly?
Yeah.
Nice.
Not that long ago.
Well, if it's going to be worth $1 million, we all need to be buying them right now, don't we, or something? What are we doing? The whole thing just sounds like the next stage of madness. It's now a sophisticated AI-driven madness, but it still doesn't sound that much healthier. Yeah.
It's another casino tactic of robbing you of your money.
Why do you need a world reserve currency?
Yeah, exactly. Why?
Why do you need one? I mean, the world reserve currency, which used to be the pound before it was the dollar, is basically the currency that's of the strongest, the strong-armed, commercialized lot, the merchants of the earth.
Paul, now that you mentioned the pound, people do metal detecting around here, and they find British pounds. Here,
do they?
Because there used to be trading. Yeah.
Proper money, eh? Eric, what do you say?
Proper money, silver, yeah.
Oh yeah. No, we need Fock Bobs. That's what you really need.
We do. We need the Fockham Hall. I think the Fock Bob should be the world's reserve currency. It might as well be. Why not?
Yeah, why not? I mean, it's well, let's face it. People believe in a bit of paper being a currency. Someone says that's a £10 note. You believe it. So why can't you have a 10? Well, no, there's no £10. It's actually a 99p Fock Bob. Because as most things are $3.99, $4.99, why hasn't anybody brought out a 99p coin? Ever wondered that? Just think about it. It'd be handy, wouldn't it? Everywhere you go, it's $3.95 or $3.99. So why don't they have 95 and 99p? I think it's the same in America, isn't it? You know,
99-cent coin.
$9, 99 cents. You know, so why don't they have a 99-cent coin?
Well, it makes it a bit challenging, but yeah, maybe there'd be a roaring trade in them. When I'm hearing things, I mean, it's a really good piece by Greg Reese. That it's very useful. That's the second or third time I've heard it, and I've put the link to it in the Rumble chat for those of you that want to watch it as well. Not that you really need to see it, but of course it can help. Alvin Court has just written that Bitcoin is £74,000, which I guess is around about $100,000. £74,000. Oh, if only I hadn't thrown those 300 Bitcoin away in 2015. What did I do?
I've heard stories like that from family.
Oh, there's horrific ones. There's a skip somewhere in Wales. A guy had 10,000 Bitcoins on it, and his wife threw the computer away because it was driving her crazy, and he spent 2 years with a metal detector. This is about 10 years ago. Going through the community dump, never found it, of course, just slowly losing his mind. I mean, this is a terrible thing. You don't want that, but you can see what would happen. But I find that, you see, the way that they're thinking when they're describing this, it's as if the whole description of the game, the plan, the system, is out of date with the technology. I still feel that. I don't know exactly what I mean, but it still doesn't feel right to me. Because the challenges are, I think, I mean, look, I'm getting slightly sort of utopian about the whole thing. Really, there should be no issue with producing the finest quality food ever. Why? You know, we've got Musk here saying people are dying. It's a big problem that people are dying. So why are they trying to kill us off by wrecking the food system? Because you've got these contradictory stories, I think intentionally. We touched upon this earlier, you know, to create confusion. $92,500 is BTC, so it's nowhere near 100,000. It's not worth very much, is it? 92,500. But you've got these contradictory stories which are knocking us off balance all the time with regards to where we're supposed to go. But if we just sort of do the sort of, you know, the idealistic thinking stuff, we've got all this technology to move things around at a lower energy cost than we've ever had before. You've still got these incumbents in the energy space who insist on controlling all that through the use of oil or whatever, and now through the silly windmills, which don't work, and then now the battery cars, which are rubbish. There's limitless amounts or unlimited amounts of hydrogen that could be used and harnessed quite easily to produce the cleanest and most efficient form of power and energy that we need. there's so much good that can be done, and yet all these brains, there's such a huge amount of, and they are clever, I'll grant you that, these people are very clever, but they're all involved in running a system for them to be top of a game, which I've never felt needs to even be played anymore. What's the point of playing it? I know I'm being sort of a bit of a dork here, but I just don't get it in the gut. It never made too much sense to me. I've often thought that the real challenges would be that if you get huge swathes of populations all over the place, really well sorted with regards to food and energy, clothing and shelter, and education, it's needed because you've got to have a focus for the mind. The main challenge is going to be, what do you do to keep people occupied? I mean, the thing that's kept us occupied for the last few hundred years has been economic hardship. It's what's driven people, and battles and wars and all this kind of stuff, because of the perception that there's not enough stuff around. And I guess pre the Industrial Revolution, there wasn't enough stuff around. It was all reliant on manpower. But now you've got Musk creating these robots. Can't you buy a robot for $16,000 now if you want? And these are just the first phase of if you want one. I mean, I'm not particularly keen myself, but technology has a way of not being resisted. It just goes on and builds up and builds up. Okay, so it's coming. But yet again, somebody wants to control it all. This is the bit you go, can you just let go of that old-fashioned idea because you've actually solved the problem? It's as if people don't want to realize or have us realize that in principle, the problems have been solved and were solved a long time ago. And what we're dealing with is kind of a drama that they create. I've said this before, to justify their continued existence as problem solvers. Whereas we're saying, there are actually, if you just pack it in and just shut up for 10 years, most of these problems that you're plaguing us with, they're going to naturally disappear if you just allow people in local communities to have access to the energy, to work with one another, to supply their own food on a local basis and create happy families everywhere. Don't worry, I'm going to take some tablets in a few minutes' time. But, I'm just sort of spitballing there and just saying, Paul, anyway, go on, shoot me to pieces. Yeah, go on.
First of all, you're talking about biblical positions there, Paul. Sorry.
Calm down, Paul. Take a deep breath. You're starting to go off the deep end here.
Am I hyperventilating?
All of their time, all of their energy, and all of their resources to kill people that have actually invented things that would accomplish exactly what you're suggesting, which obviously is craziness because it goes completely against the economic model that they have built for us. Mm-hmm. Calm down, relax, have some dip.
Enjoy your slavery. It's good for you. Honest, because we're in charge and we do have your best interests at heart. But I think it's, you're right, of course. Yes?
Paul, one moment.
Welcome to slavery.
No, thanks. I already have a wife.
Oh, wives are great. Everybody should have a lovely, happy wife. I'm serious. I'm not being cynical. They should. Every husband should have a happy wife. Yeah, that's what we want. All those things. And but it's true. They've created an economic game, which I think much of the technology would invalidate if it was allowed to actually, percolate. It's fair that there is a concern about other nations wanting to get hold of that technology to take you over. But even then, you can't work that out. You go, what is up with you? This place is enormous. We can all live in Texas if you like. Not that people of Texas would welcome that, and rightly so. We're not all going to come to Texas.
No, I don't think
they'd be happy about that.
Well, not that the Biden administration isn't trying to import the rest of the world into Texas.
That's right.
They're trying.
They are, and they're doing it in such a way that it's going to create a whole nest of further bureaucratic management jobs to deal with all the discord that's going to come about from ramming people together rapidly over a short period of time from cultures which then prove to be wholly incompatible with one another. I mean, that's really what we're talking about, which kind of brings us back in a way to where we were right the first hour. With regards to what's been going on here in the UK. Yeah, And there's a great article by a chap called Millennial Woes. Many people will know of him. He's a very articulate Scottish lad who's been around for some time. I've never spoken to him, but he makes some very fine points, and he makes them well. He wrote an article. It's very long. I can't go through the whole thing. The Muslim rape gang epidemic, but I just went to read a couple of points early on. He says he's talking about the fact that as it's come out, this is uniquely horrifying news, which it is. But it's not merely a news story, he writes, and nor is it finished in the past, as some American commentators have ignorantly stated. It is ongoing, this is true, and it is a shame upon Britain, yes it is, to rival surely anything else in its history. Absolutely. It's hellishly bad. Of course, I'm going to try and distance myself and say it's not a thing that the Britons created. It's that the controlling government that has been deceiving the Britons has done. But nevertheless, we have to deal with it. And he says, I believe the rape gang epidemic is the most significant thing to happen in Britain since World War II. I agree with him. And he says it signifies two appalling things. And these were the two things I just wanted to read out. One, enormous numbers of Muslim, typically Pakistani men, have been raping enormous numbers of white English girls as young as 11 for decades. This fact alone destroys the myth of the multicultural nation, the benefits of diversity, the equality of mankind, and the idea that people can or ever should be race blind. Point number two, the civic, legal, cultural and political systems of Britain colluded to hide this ongoing mass crime. In so doing, they condemned yet more thousands of native girls to be raped, debased their offices and the nation itself, and humiliated those girls as well as their families and communities. The thing in that clip that we played, from the Pakistani gentleman or the Muslim or Indian gentleman earlier on, whose name I've forgotten, of course, because it goes down the plug hole with me, but who was clearly stating what the problem was. One of the thoughts that I've mentioned here before is, and I know this is sort of like a goofy question to ask. It's not even really a question. It's sort of like a dorky observation. Why is it that people that have come here have been given the vote? I mean, not only were we not asked whether we wanted them here, why? Well, obviously we see the reason why now. The reason is that the globalist, left, socialist, communist, Bolshevik, blah, 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 add whatever words you like, they have done this to expand the electoral base so that they can get those votes. This is a similar thing that apparently Biden's been doing by allowing your borders to be intentionally flooded by people because they're going to set up the welfare state and therefore who they're going to vote for. My question is, why do they have the vote? Yeah. I know it's asinine the way I'm like a child asking it. I know that. But they should not have the vote. I've mentioned here before, the only empire that successfully managed a situation like this is the Byzantine Empire, where all aliens were forbidden from being involved in the law, government, banking and politics. They just couldn't get involved in those areas at all. They were not allowed, education, all of those things, education, government, the law and banking, couldn't get involved. So when he was talking in that clip about the fact that the Labour Party in these areas are allowing this to go on because they want to receive the bloc vote from Muslims, obviously, Muslims shouldn't have the vote. This is a Christian nation. It's not a Christian nation because we all run around and it just is one, and it will remain one no matter what happens now, even though we're probably going to go through a period of absolute hell. Nothing ever is taken and retained through force. History shows this. It's like the sea. In the end, even if there was an inundation that fills a region up for 500 years, in the end, the water rolls back. It can't be done. And it's obviously for disruptive reasons that it's done, so that the little coterie, the usual crew, can get to run and manage the earth, a job which was never advertised, isn't required, and is totally surplus to requirements and causes nothing but trouble. Oh, I do sound like a broken record, don't I? But I think the points that Millennial Woes make there is true, and I've mentioned it here before. There is no such thing as a multicultural society. There's never been one. You can't have one. It just doesn't exist. And what this is doing is this event here in the UK is taking the lid off that. People are beginning to see that the whole thing, normal people who suppress it and won't talk about it at nice dinner parties, possibly are beginning to think about it. And this is a good thing, even though it also comes with that kind of, slightly scary bit about where it's going to lead to.
there's no such thing as a multicultural society. What you wind up with is a fragmented society, and that is easy to control. And that's what they're looking for.
Yep, it is.
That's the deal.
So we're really looking to get rid of them. The management class of the earth has to go. We really, like we said here before, we only really have one problem, and that is the government have killed more people in more nations down through the ages than any other institution. And since we've had democracy, it's got even worse. Kings, of course, could have a fight and everything, but it used to be contained, I suppose. But under democracy, it's now, industrialized slaughter in so many ways. Of course, we've got Bill Gates running around now using the lie of vaccines and all this other nonsense to wipe people out. Meanwhile, Elon Musk is worried that so many people are going to get... Why don't Elon Musk and Bill Gates just have a fight and whoever wins can decide?
That's the only way they can operate.
A duel.
Yeah, a duel.
Appealing to the common good. If you don't appeal to the common good, you have no force of law. Because that's why there's all this, wishy-washy talk about, it's for the common good that we give out vaccines and everybody take it for the sake of other people. I don't wear my mask for myself. I wear it for you. That mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to the Byzantine Empire, you had this idea of the money changer, and you had approved money changers, and then you had people who were aliens that were trying to pass themselves off as the approved money changers. Well, that's what we need to focus on, is like who do we approve of to handle the money in the long run. That's going to be the thing, because like anything, like if you're dealing with soldiers, let's say in the military sense, those soldiers need to be paid because they're doing a service for their country, for the people that they're protecting, and that approval process needs to be scrutinized, and that's not happening. You're not even willing to scrutinize what's happening with these rape gangs.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you even hope to get them to do anything decent for the people in looking after the money purse of the people's wealth?
They're benefiting from it. They're benefiting from the rape.
They're leeching off of the system. Yeah, of course.
They're absolutely leeching off.
The central bank of bobbery is what's required, Eric. I mean, you're going to have to get it set up. You're going to have to appoint a treasurer, or it's you. We've got to get it going.
Yes.
Yes.
I think that would be quite good. And I've got the printing press ready here. I can do about half a dozen an hour. So
there you go.
I'm trying to find a printer.
Yeah. That'll suffice as the world's currency. Who was it? Benjamin Franklin that said when he was asked, "Excuse me, sir, what have you given us?" We gave you a republic if you can keep it.
Mm-hmm. If you can keep it.
Well, that one.
A minute 40, Paul.
I know. I was just about to wind up this section. We're going to play out with a little bit of music here. We're coming towards the end of our 2-hour slot here on WBN, but we will be carrying on Rumble for those of you who just can't get enough. So if you head over to paulenglishlive.com and click the Rumble link, you'll find the show still there running. It's also still running on Radio Soapbox. This song harkens back to Britain during World War II. Not that I just quite like this. If you've not heard it, you've not heard it. It's by Public Service Broadcasting. Very interesting band. It's called Spitfire, and it's just kind of cool. It runs for about 4 minutes, so we're going to play out with this. This is just to remind people a little bit about what the culture of this country is really about, this nation's about, to some degree. I know I sound a bit old-fashioned and hackneyed, but we're going to do it anyway. And we'll be back after this song. So we'll see you on the other side of this in about 4 minutes' time, I think. Oh, there we go. Oh, didn't want to play.
The birds fly a lot better than we do. See how they wheel and bank and fly? Perfect. And all in one. Wings, body, tail, all in one. Someday, I'm going to build a plane that will be just like a bird. Exactly a bird I'm creating, is it? At least a curious sort of bird. A bird that breathes fire and spits out death and destruction. A Spitfire bird. A Spitfire bird. Always faster.
What a strange little machine.
Can't see us fit in the air without getting a kick out of it.
Why, it is like a bird.
A Spitfire bird. Tiring, always stretching up for something that's just out of reach. But I'll get it. After all, what I want isn't as easy as all that. I've got to do 400 miles an hour, turn on a sixpence, climb 10,000 feet in a few minutes, dive at 500 without the wings coming off, carry 8 machine guns.
Hello, Hunter Leader. Bandits approaching Beachy from southeast, Angels 1-5, over. Bandits are now about 3 to 4 miles south of Beachy. You should see them in a minute, they're down son of you. Hello, Hunter Leader, flapper control calling. Can you see them? Can you see them?
Yes, that was called Spitfire by Public Service Broadcasting, and the voice you could hear was that of Leslie Howard, taken from the film The First of the Few, although I think in America it was called Spitfire, and it was about the life of R.J. Mitchell, who was the designer of it. Anyway, irrespective of all that kind of stuff, I just think it's quite a groovy song. Anyway, welcome back to the show. We're here on just gone 3 minutes past 10 here in the UK. That means it's 3 minutes past 5 over in the US, and we're all still here. And chaps, if you want to push the conversation into areas that we've not touched upon, I covered many of the things. I've got loads of other stuff that we could go into, but if there are things that you want to draw the audience's attention to, things that you've spotted this week that you want to bring up, please just jump in and let us know what's on your mind, Eric.
Why not? You see, I think that let's say it is possible to wave a magic wand and we could get what we wanted, and you could get all these bastards that's ever been in government into court, first of all. And I believe that once found guilty, you shunt them off to an island somewhere, never to come back again. They're permanently on that island. Because what they do, psychopaths do, they play the victim all the time. So they'll try and get people to feel sorry for them for what they've done and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But what about those, for instance, like Dr. Hillary Jones or Killary Jones, as you know, who pushed the jabs? Surely shouldn't he be done for manslaughter or murder or some? What would be the charge for him? And people who pushed the jabs, and also people that openly administered it, because remember, under the law, ignorance isn't an excuse. They were putting a substance into people's arms, which we've now found has been proven to be injurious to their health. So how would we deal with them? So I open this up. What do people think? Because the last thing I'd want is a country full of people swinging by gantries. We don't want that. I believe that's not civilized. The civilized way is to just say, okay, you're guilty. People like Hillary Jones, my view would be he'd be completely asset stripped, sent to the island. He'd have to work to pay back his debt to society. And then when he's paid back his debt, he can come back. And this is the way I would look on it. You don't have jails. People just pay back their debt to society. Obviously, you'd have to have places where the loony bins, where loonies can go, and where there's people that are not safe to be on the streets, where I should say psychiatric cases who need to be treated, who are ill and they need treatment. But open this up. What does anybody else feel about this idea of an island and people pay back their debts to society? Any ideas?
Australia? Isn't that what they did in Australia?
Well, they sort
sent
of
them to
did.
Australia, yes.
They did a lot
Yes,
of
but
nasty things. They seized people as well, falsely, a bit like press ganged them and sent children over there for all sorts of reasons because the criminality was in the court system at the time. But what you're talking about, Eric, I mean, there's no we
They did
have
to
no
Canada as well, yeah.
Yeah, they did. We have no shortage of islands around the main islands here. I think it's about 3,500.
Correct.
Yeah, send
They're
them
all a
out
bit
to the
small.
Isle of Man.
Oh no, and ruin it. It's great.
No, it's
and they'd
nice.
get to watch
No,
the
there's
TT.
there's a lovely.
Okay, find
beautiful
some island up in the Arctic. How about that?
No, there's an island off the coast. It's way up near the Orkneys.
Yeah.
That they did experiments with anthrax during World War II. Perfect place to send them. They said they cleaned it up now. It's just populated by sheep. It's cold, wet, miserable. But the other place is where NASA do their fake Mars pictures from. That's Devon Island. That's near the Arctic. It's a huge area. I mean, obviously, they'd have to do their fake photography somewhere else. wouldn't
Hey,
they?
send them to Greenland.
Perfect. Perfect. I mean,
That's been in the
my
news
view
lately.
Mm-hmm.
is that it would cost the taxpayer nothing, although there wouldn't be tax as such. I don't believe in tax. You obviously have to pay for some form of administration, but how that could be raised, there are some countries that have voluntary tax. So, I mean, I don't even believe in having a driving license. If you want to drive, you drive.
I mean, I think
you
you've
harm
got
somebody,
to
you
do
don't
something
pay the
short term,
consequence.
Eric. I.e., restrain them in some way. I agree with that. And of course, then I'm concerned about the manipulation of the court process because I just think it's such an overly complicated thing that its complexity enables it to be manipulated. But
I like what you say though about compensating society for the crime done.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good thing. That should be done. Like if you
Yes, it
steal a
should.
cow, you pay back 2 cows.
Yeah,
Correct.
the biblical laws on the theft are brilliant. They just work. You're going to reduce theft, not overnight, but it will actually bring about a cultural change, a behavioral change.
We need attention brought back to biblical principles, and we need catechism to people because there's a lot of ignorance, and there's a lot of wisdom in the Bible that it could be taught, and it's just you have to pay attention and actually do the work of reading.
Mm-hmm.
Which there aren't enough readers. There's a lot of people looking at their phones, looking down at their phones, and yeah, you can say it's reading, but it really, there's nothing like having a good book and just going through it page by page.
I agree with you. I think there's a great requirement for rewriting, though.
Well,
if you look
you first need to know what's in them before you can even.
Well,
begin to
somebody
write.
does. Yeah, the writers need to know that, and of course, that's not a perfect process. But if I've thought about this. I think about it quite a bit. I can sit down and read books that are written in the 1800s. I quite like them. If you throw Dickens at most people, they're not going to read it, I suspect. I could be wrong about that. I mean, A Tale of Two Cities is apparently the biggest selling novel of all time ever because it has been around quite a bit. Nearly.
I still like that fact you told me about him being a transcriptionist in the court reporter.
Yes.
That tells you something about the character of him. And just the discipline of having to do that, to take down notes.
I think it's what he was exposed to. He was 19, I think, when he started doing that. And, when you look back on these people that lived on both sides of the Atlantic in that period, they're much more grown up at 19 than I am now, probably, because of the pressures of the time. There's a maturity about them. And
there was more
grit.
trust in society, too. Fathers trusted their sons. Because they had an intact family more often than not.
And also there was
a
desire for it.
It was
people were more practical.
Yeah.
Because, look, a perfect example, cars. Now, you go back, cars of the 60s, everything was manual. You had to pull out a choke to start the engine. How many people know what a choke is now?
No.
You also had to turn a handle to open the window. But less went wrong because it was so mechanical. Now, people get in a car, they just start the engine, press a button to open the window or close it. Everything's electric.
It's all computerized and it's so minuscule. Yeah. You don't even know what's going on because you can't see the operation of it. And there's not an understanding of most people of what they're even partaking in.
Sat-nav. Now, you wanted to go to somewhere, say 40 years ago, you get a map out. Mind you, when my sat-nav's so bleeding useless that I actually still use a map because it's all right if you want to go halfway around Will's mother's, but I like to go the direct route. But no, seriously, I still use
and the way
map,
they drafted mechanical things back in the day, the architecture, everything was done on pen and paper. Right. And this is what I wanted to thank you for. You got taken up a fountain pen recently, and I started getting. I bought a big bottle of India ink for my dip pen that I have here.
Oh, he's catching.
Excellent.
It is.
I've got a dip pen, though. This is a cartridge one.
Yeah. I know. I know you're telling me about that. That's cool.
Always in the car. Sorry, I'm just showing off. I got a car. No, but seriously, though, they are as cheap as chips, as we call it. The Chinese, I have to hand it to them. They brought out quality that is really
I was looking at pens the other day. I was looking at this brand that I had, Mont Blanc, and I'm looking at their website, and it's like, who's going to spend $4,000 on a pen?
I would.
These pens are just ridiculous.
I've got.
You would if you had that kind of money.
No, I did have a Mont Blanc back in the 80s over here when I was in London. Everybody started as a sign of your status within the office. You had to get a Mont Blanc. So I had a Mont Blanc pencil and a Mont Blanc. I think it was a biro, which I quite liked. They were pretty nice. They were pretty good. But everybody had to buy them because it was the 80s and you were nobody if you didn't have a Mont Blanc. I love all that stuff. It's great, really. I mean, the thing is, it's actually a lot of fun unless you don't have a Mont Blanc and everybody's got one, and then you're less than, and you go off and become a serial killer or something like that.
I've got a cheap Speedball dip pen. That's what I'm using.
But just going back to this thing about writing and stuff and Dickens or that period, and when I say rewriting, what I mean is, if you look at the era in which all those guys were, and some of the greatest writing in terms of the distillation and the refinement of writing is found, from the mid-1800s onwards. In my view, some people will find it slightly laborious. Of course, Dickens did write for a weekly magazine, so he really spun it out. That's why it's just, rivers of adjectives. But if you get into it, it takes you to other places. There's so much detail provided, you end up getting hypnotized by it, which is, of course, part of the storytelling process. You enter into it. It's like a little contract that you have with the author. I'll pretend that this is all real if you take me along for the ride, and it's great. But what I'm coming to is that people they put more time into writing because there was nothing else they had to put time into. People were using literally gallons of ink and quills and their hand. I mean, the fact that Dickens wrote all this longhand in cursive writing. It's quite amazing when you see the amount of it before he went off to the typesetters and all this kind of stuff, okay? So it's huge. There's just huge amount. And so they wrote in a way, and when people read, what else were they going to do? There wasn't much else to do. People could afford those weekly magazines, and that's where all the stories began. And of course, it goes from Dickens, then later on you've got over here, we got Conan Doyle and Sherlock Holmes, which became this sort of literary phenomenon because it's just, he created these sort of archetypes in a way. Then you've got all the pulps in America with The Shadow and things like this. So as it moves through, but it's all about the written word and people buying printed magazines. The wisdom in the past just needs to be respun, in my view. I don't mean simplified, I mean clarified and providing a bit more brevity. And the reason why I think at least there should be versions like that is that they'd have a greater chance of being consumed and understood more rapidly. I do think that there was greater focus in the past on what they did because they weren't spread as thin. If you look at all the pursuits that were available, the technology is limited, I guess, sort of the things that you could do, although it was expanding all the time. Maybe you were an engineer. Maybe you were going to design engines, steam engines and bridges, or maybe you were going to design bridges and buildings and other things like that. So there was a lot of concentrated focus in fewer areas. Now there's so many other areas because technology keeps opening other things up. But to get people to read again, I think is key, and I do think that people will, as long as it's put together again. I mean, I know it seems a bit flippant to say it, but the Harry Potter books sold in colossal numbers, didn't they, 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So Accord, whatever it was, and I think that we could almost do a show about that because I think that there's a backstory. I've got some intriguing conspiracy theories and websites about that, particularly a post from a woman living in Essex who said she wrote most of them under compulsion from MI6. That sounds weird, right? But it's very interesting.
What did she write most of?
The Harry Potter books. She wrote them.
Oh, so J.K. Rowling.
That's the story. I'm not backing it. I'm not championing it. I'm just throwing it out there.
It's alleged.
Well, I've mentioned
similar.
Yeah, there have been things like J.K. Rowling's been apparently at conferences and been asked questions about her characters and can't answer any of the questions as if she's not familiar with her own work. I've heard several reports of that. And also, its phenomenal success worldwide as a publishing event makes me think like the Beatles. Right? Seriously, I'm going, how did that happen? It's really, and they're enormous.
Yeah, Abbey Road. And all that whole
and they tap into ancient archetypes, and something about the school setting is very compelling. It really is. Of course, I know a lot of people in the States got all worried and say, well, they're teaching them demonology or it's all satanic and this, that, and the other.
I do remember that about that.
Yeah.
That was such a huge deal.
Yeah. It is a deal, and dark arts and all this, that, and the other, and it touches upon it. And maybe it is the case that they've written these lines into those stories in particular to usher a generation of youth into thinking into those spaces. And maybe these are the youth that we now see today who've got purple hair and are covered in tattoos and got studs through their head. I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if there was a link because, these guys, they plan out the social engineering in all sorts of ways. And I think there's a quote from somebody in the CIA years ago saying that books are the best. For controlling civilization, books and novels are the best. Because the thing about a reader, when you're the reader of the book, you decide to read the next page, don't you? You propel the whole event. It's not being projected at you. You are having to work. And this is a good thing. This is why I think reading is good, because it builds up a kind of mental stamina and the ability to focus on things and track things through. And if you think about some of the plots back then and the sheer detailed nature of the characters, they're of a degree that you tend to not find in films these days, which are just, quick, aliens, let's blow it up. I mean, that's basically what it's been reduced down to. It's a sort of sensory experience in many ways.
Yeah, but it's all finance, isn't it, though? That's the trouble. Everything is bums on seats. And notes, and I always remember what Dave Starbuck said. He's passed away now. He said, do what your heart desires and the money will follow you. If you go trying to chase Danny Dollar, you won't be as creative. Just be
I agree.
and the money will follow.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. don't look at it from a financial point of view, because I get fed up with those programs.
Reminds me of
got them in the States. That thing, Dragon's Den or something. Well, all it was money, 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 all to get rich, not on somebody doing what they passionately love doing, and trying to get forward in that. Oh no, nothing like that. Sorry, you was going to say, Patrick.
Oh, it just kind of reminds me of a biblical passage I was reading yesterday. It is about spending your money on your brother and friend. Hide it not under a stone to perish. Dispose of your treasure as the Most High commands, for that will profit you more than the gold. Store up almsgiving in your treasure house, and it will save you from every evil.
We've all got a talent, I think. We've all got.
Well, do you remember when you were, say, a teenager, and maybe you hung out, you had pals, chums, buddies, whatever you want to call them, and you would be reading books? We were in the 70s. The guys I hung out with some of them all got into reading a lot of science fiction. It wasn't for me. I found that a little bit, I don't know what it was. I never found as though it had much soul. It used to bore me to tears.
No, it's Eric von Daniken's what I used to read.
Chariots of the Gods, eh?
Chariots of the Gods, yes.
Yep.
He's still alive. He's still around.
Is he really? Wow.
Yeah, he's about. I think he's in his 90s. He must.
Maybe he is a god in a chariot. He's that old. I mean, maybe he's become.
A lot of it's been. That's right. A lot of it's been debunked now. But then loads of people got on the bandwagon, and you got the Welsh Triangle, the Bermuda Triangle, and every triangle you could ever wish to think of, and there's people making fortune out of it. But the real fact of the matter is there was a book that came out called Supernature. Have you ever heard of that one?
Yeah.
No. It was written by a South African chap, and that was brilliant. And they said in that if you constructed a pyramid of a certain dimensions and you put blunt razor blades inside this pyramid, they would sharpen. Well, the office where I worked... we used razor blades because we worked on drawing boards, and the razor blades are always getting a bit blunt because you're scratching out ink and things like that.
Yep.
So they did it over a weekend, and it worked, which is quite interesting. And there we go.
Is there much money to be made in the razor blade sharpening service industry? Bring your razor blades in for us, and they'll be sharp by Monday morning. There's not much to be made on that, is there? Really, unfortunately,
they go. That's interesting. Easy.
Yeah,
tight-fisted gets, you see, because we went through loads and loads of razor blades. Because you think scratching out ink and things like that, it does, it does blunt the razor blades down. But there's all other things like different coincidences and things like that, and where people can communicate over large distances, and gut feelings, and this book, I think it's still in print, was years ahead of its time. So it's called Supernature.
Yes, Desmond Morris.
No, not Desmond Morris, no.
Oh,
no.
Somebody else.
It was somebody else. It was a South African bloke. He's croaked it now. I think Desmond Morris is still around, isn't he? Because he used to be on the television shoving things up crocodiles' bums and things like that, didn't he?
What a jolly good job. And what do you want to do, Desmond, when you grow up? I want to put this up a crocodile's rear end. Is that okay? Of course, get stuck in. Could I put this up there? No, you may not. What about this? Stop it. Yeah.
Do you remember when Desmond Morris was at London Zoo? And I think it was Chi Chi or Anan. That was the panda. They wanted it to mate. And there he was. The old sort of like reporters at sports events where they used to have this microphone, and he's giving a running commentary. Yes, Chi Chi's now running around. Yes, he's looking a bit randy. No, he's back in again. And I didn't remember the original, but I've seen it on YouTube, and it's hysterical. It really is. And he's doing it all serious, and I was off my seat. So if you look up YouTube, Desmond Morris, and I think Chi Chi, it's on there. And it's a good laugh.
Eric, were you talking about Graham Hancock?
No, he's talking about Lyle Watson. Thanks, XO. Supernature's Lyle Watson. Yeah.
Yes. He died just a couple of years ago, I think.
Did he?
Very interesting book. I think it's still in print. I don't know. I'll look it up. But I think it's still in print. Supernature. Yes.
When did... open question to you both. When did you last read a novel? Can you even remember? Was it recently, or was it so far away you can't even remember when or even what it was? Which wouldn't surprise me. I'm just asking. I'm interested.
Hobson's Choice at school.
Really? The play? The play, yeah?
No, the book. Hobson's Choice.
All right, okay.
That's
the last time you read a novel or a piece of fiction or something.
I'm trying to remember the name of the book.
Fiction.
I read a novel by this author named Wally Lamb, and it was about two twins. I'm trying to remember the name of the book. That was the last novel I remember reading, but it was a while ago.
I can't remember the last time I read a novel either. But as we're talking about it, I remember how I used to feel at times when I was reading novels, and it was a sense of magic in many cases. In other words, a real totally being disconnected from this world and quite enjoying it, and being utterly immersed in another one. I didn't get nerdy about it. You get these people that get, they dress up these things and everything. What on earth are you doing? Oh yeah, I'm this character from this book. No, you're not. You're not. Stop doing that. It's very embarrassing and silly. I just thought, but there's something about it for the mind, and I don't know why stories are so powerful, but they are. And maybe it's something that we need to reharness. I mean, in a way, a nation is, through its media, which of course we don't control, telling a story back to itself 24/7 these days. And of course, the story that's being told is rotten. Like you were mentioning earlier, Eric, the English are lazy and won't go and pick their own vegetables. I would make things like that a criminal offence. Because I think it's to demoralise people. I think it's dangerous talk. And people, it's only words. Well, if it's only words, then don't say them. You see, it's always...
Sorry, I didn't mean to chime in there, but
No.
but people are duplicators. So all they do is they just set off a rumour and people will duplicate it. That's the thing. I mean, after World War II, my parents saying that they used to say the only good German is a dead German. That's what the government was.
Oh yeah. I remember that one.
And the other one is, if you find a good German, shoot them before they go rotten. Terrible things, horrendous. Now I can say that because it's about another European. But if I said that about some other race, I think I'd have the thought police knocking on my door tomorrow.
You might do, Eric.
Thing.
Yeah, there's a good chance. So don't say.
Might even have a good thought police tomorrow. It's not on next week.
But there's also the historical factor that there was an actual war that went on where that kind of humor was being used. It's kind of like a gallows humor.
Yes.
I found that book, by the way, the Wally Lamb book. It's called "I Know This Much Is True."
Right.
And I'm looking at it. I got it in my hand here. It's about 900 pages long. I don't remember exactly what it was about, though.
Supernature looks relatively easy to get. I've looked on the page, Google it, and you can get it off of eBay. You even pay, was it £1.56 for it at eBooks? Oh, you got £2.80 delivery, so you can get it almost anywhere. So it's pretty. So I don't know if it's still in print, but you can get second-hand copies of it easy. So there we go. So if you want to sharpen your razor blades, that's the thing. That's the book to buy. Sorry, a little bit plug there,
You were talking about the Spitfire earlier. I learned that the Merlin engine that they put in those, a lot of those engines were built for Rolls-Royce by the Studebaker company here in Ohio.
Were they? Yeah. Don't surprise me. I guess.
And that's another company that went out of business that should have stayed in business. I think the company that preceded that made the Packard, the big V12 Packard engines.
Well, apparently Rolls-Royce wasn't what they're quite cracked up to be. Bristol were a better firm, apparently. And a lot of it was a lot of PR. I mean, I know that during the Battle of Britain, pilots, a lot of pilots around that time refused to fly a Spitfire and preferred the Hurricane, because the Spitfire, it wasn't until they got to the Mark V that they ironed all the problems out. It was pretty ropey when it first started. And it's like it's strange, like the World War I tanks. So when they got to the Mark V, they'd ironed out all the problems. And of course, after the Mark V, it was pretty good, it's brilliant. But they had to rush it to production so quickly that there's a lot of things going wrong. But actually, the American Mustang is actually a Spitfire, the progression of a Spitfire, because
you notice a lot of these planes between the Allies were a lot of them were just based on American planes. I remember reading about Charles Lindbergh mentioning how we were building so many airplanes, and they were supposedly going to be used only for our own defense here in America, but secretly they were being shipped away to places like Britain and the Soviet Union. And he alerted the public to it in his speech, actually, when it was 9/11, 1941 in Iowa. He made a speech about how all of our planes and the military equipment was being put into the Lend-Lease program.
Yes.
And they were going to start a war whether we liked it or not. And this was before Pearl Harbor happened.
Well, the Russians built a super fortress, which was an almost exact copy of the American super fortress, because they managed to get hold of
they
one.
got their parts from America.
Well, apparently one
Or their
landed
designs and whatnot.
accidentally, and they sort of took it to bits and rebuilt it, sort of thing. But
Well, that's like I learned about the blast furnace that they have over in Magnitogorsk, which is the big steel making production center of Russia besides Donbass, and that was designed by an American. So, and they had American engineers go over there and build the thing, because we had U.S. steel, and Pittsburgh was full of, or Pennsylvania and Ohio and these places were full of steel mills and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays it's all gone away, and that's why they call it the Rust Belt, because all of that industry has just been, put over to slave labor. Well, not slave labor, but to like places like China, Brazil, the BRICS nations. They have the industry, whereas we're more of a consumer service economy type setup, and less manufacturing than we should. But there's still
it's horrendous, and really, again, it's treason what has actually happened. But when you look at what has happened with industry over in Europe and in America, it is a crime, a total crime. I mean, what do we produce now? I mean, what does America produce? It's all produced in China. I mean, when you buy tools, you think, oh, D-Wall and all these different things. You look at it, and on the side, it's got made in China. But it's so cheap. It's sad. Early computers were made in Ireland. Now they're made in China. Do you know of any computers that are made in America at all? Actually built there? Apple or not, I don't think.
They won't be made soon, Eric, because there's 773 million Chinamen about to get lost. They won't be able to make anything, will they?
Yes, that's a point, yeah.
Well, I mean, I do, with the world population thing, it is worth reminding ourselves that there's 1.7 billion Indians, the same number, if not more, Chinese, and about 900 million Indonesians. So in that little, relatively small, in comparison to the rest of the landmass of the Earth area, you've got over 4 billion people, which I understand is more than 55-60% of the entire world's population. So numerically, we Europeans are probably per square metre or square yard of land, we probably are occupying way more considering our population. But of course, we're being, reduced down in numbers rapidly. And this, of course, is, I would suggest, because of the ancient spiritual war between us and another little group who have been waging and conducting that war in all sorts of ways for the last 2,000-3,000 years. We don't necessarily need to go there again this time. We can cover that next week if you like. But I think... Yeah.
But at least you can identify them by their little hats.
Yeah, you can. At least you can do that.
I think they believe that they're bar tables, or I was going to say bar stewards, because they got beer mats on their heads. So they're people that, it's like Queen Victoria, she always looks as if she had a sugar bowl on her head. So perhaps it's some sort of weird thing. They think they're a table and they put something on their head. But going back to what you were talking about aeroplanes in World War II, I don't know if you've heard the story about the dive bomber that wouldn't pull out the dive. Have you heard that? And it's supposed to be a true story.
Well, the early Spitfires had a problem with certain fuels. The fuel system.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was gravity fed. So when they actually turned upside down, the engine cut out. And it wasn't until a few Wolves. Messerschmitts crashed in the Battle of Britain. They took them apart, and they decided to copy the Messerschmitts, which they had fuel injection. When they put fuel injection in, it wasn't a problem. But the early Spitfires, you couldn't turn upside down because the fuel would stop. The engine would go cut out. Yeah, because they used it. I think it was SU carburetors, which are gravity fed. So, but no, what I was going to say is in the 1930s there was a big race on to find that the thing was dive bombers, and American government put out tenders for a dive bomber could do this, that, and the other, and whatever. They put their specification down. Now, there is an element of truth of what I'm going to tell you, but whether it's a shaggy dog story or not,
only an element.
make up your own minds. But have you heard that apparently, I think it was Dauntless, it may not have been, but there's a dive bomber, and when they put it in a wind tunnel, every time it pulled out of its dive, the wings fell off. And this thing was years ahead of its time, and it would have won the government contract. And every night, the designers were sitting around heavily smoking, and everything they tried, they just couldn't get around this problem. The wings, the dive brakes and the wings coming off. And one evening, the cleaner that had been going around every night said, "Excuse me." Well, she had an American accent, but I can't do an American accent. So I said, "Yes." She said, "I heard you got this. I see you got this problem with your with the dive brakes." Yes. She said, "Well, why don't you drill holes along the brakes, and I'm sure that'll stop the wings coming off." And they went, "Oh, come on!" And the bloke said, "Hang on a minute, you got your slide rule there." I said, "She's got something. This is genius." They did it, and it worked. And they said, "Are you a designer?" She said, "No." She said, because in those days they had very thick paper, toilet paper. She said, "No." She said, "When you tear along the serration of a toilet paper, it never goes along the serration." She said, "And that's how I thought of it. And that's supposed to be a true story." So there we are.
Well, that reminds me, it was also a woman that first model of the Spitfire. She was the one that came up with the mechanical design to fix the
Really?
fuel problem. Yeah, in the dive.
Yeah,
I forget the woman's name though.
So what you're saying is the Spitfire, if it went into a dive and it inverted, it would kind of spit, or would that be more of a sputter?
A sputterfire.
Well, but Spotify. But the latest, the last one, what was it? Is it the 23 or the 28? One of them. It was nothing like the original. It had clip wings, and it had a Griffin engine on it, which was a much bigger engine. They reckon that went like what's it off of a shovel? That thing did,
You know who would be good for this conversation about airplanes is Maleficus Scott. He knows
Really?
he knows a lot about them. Yeah. He got me playing this game called War Thunder.
Well, we'll have to do an aeroplane show, won't we, for
We'll
the
have to.
aeroplane
I'm an
types?
aircraft enthusiast, and I tell you what we've got over in this country.
Radio aircraft enthusiasts. Yeah,
That's right.
okay.
We've got a Grumman Avenger with the Pacific colours on it, and it's a park just up the road to me at an airfield. It's privately owned. It must have belonged to I assume whoever's got it must be very rich, because I know that the Coast Guard, American Coast Guard, used Grumman Avengers for years after the war. So that's probably the only way he's got it. But it's actually got Pacific colours on it, which is very rare in this country. And also a Corsair, the Whispering Death. He's got one of those. He's a collector.
Yeah, that was my grandpa's favorite plane. He used to tell me a lot about those. It was just
Volt Corsair.
Beautiful plane. Yeah, the Corsair.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Whispering Death.
I think that the P-51 Mustang has it for me. That's something about that plane. They got everything right on that plane. They knocked out all the hard corners, and it's still a winner today. It really is. And there's an American firm making replicas of them, isn't there? That are much cheaper, because to own one costs a lot of money. But yes, that's one heck of a plane. But no, I don't know. But I still think the Hurricane is very underrated for what it did.
Yeah, and that started out as a biplane airplane, and they just took the top set of wings off and modified the bottom, and the original tail section was all wood.
Oh yes, that's right. And the good thing about it is that if it got shot up, you just what they did in Malta is they get copies of the Maltese Times and stuck that over the holes and put some clear dope on it, and it flew again on the hurricanes. But the strange thing is that what people don't realise is that when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, Yamamoto copied what the British did when they attacked a Italian port using string bag saltfish aircraft, and the attack on Pearl Harbor was very similar. It was modelled on the way the British did an attack on, and I can't remember the name of the Italian port, but the way we actually attacked an Italian port. So there it is, But because I guess you all know that, well, it's like Granny telling sucking boiled eggs, that Roosevelt knew about Pearl Harbor. The British were
Nah, he
telling
didn't.
him.
It was a complete mystery. It was a total surprise to him. It said so in the papers. He didn't have a clue. What? Pearl Harbor, you say? Really? Japanese at the door?
Because they sanctioned the fuel coming into Japan, which was, a war crime. It's like today they have collective sanctions on an entire country. For instance, Iran, where you can't do business with the entire country. It's collective punishment for what the governors of the country did, and it just leads to warfare. And you can see it coming a mile away. That's probably where they're going to next have war, if it should break out on a large scale.
But talking
they
about
need a new
Pearl
plan.
Harbor,
They need a new game plan, and not to resolve everything with war all the time. Maybe it is unavoidable. I don't really know, but it's just.
Have you seen? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut across you there, but have you seen a Spike Milligan gag where he did a scene? I don't know if you're aware of Spike Milligan in the States. He was a comedian over in this country. Nutty as a fruitcake.
We had Spike Jones.
The City Slickers.
Yeah.
And no, with Spike Milligan, he said there's this scene where there's these Japanese tourists in a house taking pictures, going click, 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 click. And there was a chap like doing a commentary. He said, there they are, they're interested in the English house. And suddenly one of the Japanese tourists goes over to this bloke who's doing the commentary and says, "Excuse me, can you tell me the way to the toilet, please?" And the commentator looks into the camera and said, "Now that's an interesting thought. They can find their way to Pearl Harbor, but they can't find their way to the Ghazi." But yes, well, I think you got to see it. It's a more of a visual gag.
Yeah,
Spike Milligan. Yes. I want to play you something by Spike Milligan, but I'm not going to. How about came across this the other day. Oh, is this working?
What about a German opera singer, season 1? He was very good at that. Eat More Fruit. That's a beautiful piece of music by Spike Milligan. If you're very moved, you've got to see it as visual, though.
Is it? There's this.
Yes, but...
let me play you this. No, maybe I'll play out with this. It's called The Raspberry King by Jack Hodges. We'll play out with that. It's only about 3 minutes long.
That's the one.
Is that the one you're thinking of? Okay. It gets a little bit exhausting. I'll play out with it. You can all turn off and we go through it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Not the only way to understand the press.
Now, this is a clip from Yes Minister. It was a comedy TV series in the 80s. I barely caught it. But this is how to understand the press. Okay, I'm just changing the pace, the pace, and this is how to understand the press, and this is them having a little conflab.
Not the only way to understand the press is to remember that they pander to their readers' prejudices.
Don't tell me about the press. I know exactly who reads the papers. The Daily Mirror is read by people who think they run the country. The Guardian is read by people who think they ought to run the country. The Times is read by the people who actually do run the country. The Daily Mail is read by the wives of the people who run the country. The Financial Times is read by people who own the country. The Morning Star is read by people who think the country ought to be run by another country. The Daily Telegraph is read by people who think it is.
Prime Minister, what about the people who read The Sun?
Sun readers don't care who runs the country, as long as she's got big tits.
Not the only way to...
So there you go. That's a bit of salient wisdom from Britain. So there we go. And if you don't know what the Sun newspaper is, it was a newspaper which featured usually a scantily clad, busty girl on page 3. They became known as page 3 girls. It was all part of the titillation of Britain in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. And I don't think they do that sort of thing anymore, do they, Eric? I don't think they have page 3 girls anymore.
No, I don't think they have naughty ladies showing their bits anymore.
They're considerable assets. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's right. I don't think you read the Sun, do you? I think you just look at the pictures, because the people who get the Sun, I don't think they can read, can they? Not quite sure.
No.
No.
No, it was very powerful though in the 80s and 90s, wasn't it? It was 4.5 million daily circulation or something. It was actually colossal for a country so small. It was pretty big. So, not that I ever bought copies. I never read it.
Show again?
What, the clip? It was from a thing called Yes Minister or Yes Prime Minister, I think it was. And pretty witty,
That was
actually.
the name of the show?
Yeah. Yes, it's full of it was a very scathing and sarcastic view about how power really works, written by people who had actually been involved, I think, in the government press office. I can't remember the name of the writers. It's quite witty. I mean, it's quite light touch. That was a bit vulgar for them. It wasn't really vulgar at all, generally. But yes. Pretty popular, I think, in the 80s, wasn't it? Was it the 80s? I don't know.
It was, yeah.
I was too busy reading novels back then. So that's actually
novel.
That's novel. Yeah, absolutely. I have to say, since we talked about it half an hour ago, I keep thinking, what should I go and read? I probably do need to read something for a bit of escapism. But every time I pick something up, I just go, nah. And I just turn round, and I was looking at my bookshelves here, and God, if anybody walked in here and looked at these, they'd go, what a dullard. Seriously. I think it's just all so quite earnest, really. I think it's time to give it all up. Maybe I'll take up cookery or something in my later years and, become a bon vivant chef or something. I'm actually looking at a collection of novels by Kurt Vonnegut Jr. I think I've read everything by him. And I found them absolutely fantastic, very funny, very dry, and a wonderfully scathing and sarcastic view of the operations of the world. He's the guy that wrote Slaughterhouse-Five. Are you familiar with that, Eric? Do you know of that as a book?
Yes, I've heard of that. Yes, yes.
Because he actually was in Dresden. Not that I want to go all Dresden-y because we're near the end of the show, but Vonnegut actually was literally in Dresden as it got blown to bits, and he survived by staying in a slaughterhouse or however you say slaughterhouse in German, I don't know. But yeah, that's it was
the only book I read by him was a book called Dead-Eye Dick, which was about nuclear war.
Mm-hmm.
And it used the example of what nuclear war is like, essentially on a large scale, of course, that the main character goes up on top of his house with a gun and just randomly aims it and shoots, and he ends up killing some pregnant woman who's vacuum cleaning, and then it goes off from there. It's kind of like the idea of what nuclear war is like, and as far as the type of people that are targeted, is the innocent.
Catty7 has put me out of my misery. Thank you, Catty7. It's Schlachthaus. I hope I didn't muller that. But that's for slaughterhouse, Schlachthaus. Okay? It's in the chat, everybody, so practice your German pronunciation.
I worked with a bloke who was actually on the Dresden raid, and he was a navigator during the war, and he said that, I'm not quite sure what wave he was on, I think it was 17 or 18, and he said you could see the fire, because he was navigating. He said they didn't really have to. He said there's bombers at all different levels, and when you flew over the target, you flew as high as you could to get above all the flak. And he said he'd never seen anything quite like it. And he said they went at night, and he said you could actually see trees being uprooted and cars rolling over because it was the suction of the flames drawing the flames in. And he was at about 17,000 feet. 15 to 17,000 feet, and he said they felt the bottom of the plane, and it was hot with the heat from the flames. I think it's called convective heat or something like
No,
that.
it's horrific.
He couldn't
I don't want
believe
to
it.
know.
And he
It's horrific.
He said it was horrendous.
Yeah.
And I think that what he told me, it shook him. He'd never seen anything like it in his life. He was almost in tears when he was telling me. He said it was something he would never, and he said to think he was dropping bombs on these poor people. It's horrendous, and that was it.
Well, that attitude, as we've touched upon here, and will continue to do so, that attitude has not left them, whoever they may be at the time. It's that thing, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and they go mad really with it. And it's we have a system that unfortunately enshrines these people in these positions. And even with today's show image, which I do quite like because it's just full of all the reprobates, the thing to be borne in mind is that there's someone controlling them. That really is the key. There's another force behind that ensured that these sorts of controllable ones, as it were, ended up in the positions that they ended up in. No one ever senses, really, that the British Prime Minister really is in charge of prime ministering things.
Oh,
and no.
There's a theory, though, is that the pharaohs never disappeared. They just reinvented themselves, and the descendants of the pharaohs are actually running things now. And there's a chap that's got a very, very good theory on that. It's very interesting. I don't know too much about it, but
have you got his name? Do you know the name of the chap? I've heard that before, by the way.
He was actually on the what's the name Eastwood show many years ago.
All right.
Vinny Eastwood, who's
Yeah.
in New Zealand. So look back through his old shows, although a lot of them have been taken down. But when you look at a certain family who I won't mention, whose family name begins with R, when you look at the back of their heads, they're kind of conical shaped. Just sort of in passing, just notice. And certain things like that. He said there's certain physical features about them that they look very much like the pharaohs. So that's something that I'll look into it. But it got me rather interested. And he said, it's funny, they seem to win through everywhere. I'm talking about the people that control the strings with the banks. So there we are. So there we go.
Yeah, they do. It's an ancient thing. I think we've kind of tumbled towards the end here. Unless there's any final points that people want to raise. I didn't want to go back over the ground that we covered with such seriousness at the beginning, although I've got more clips about that kind of stuff, but I don't think we need to sort of go over that one again. I think we're in a funny period anyway. Funny's not necessarily the right word, but I'm feeling sort of more sensitive to what's going on. I think the public communication space is quite a thing at the moment, and I wonder if they will just try and bury this completely. I've got a feeling, I guess maybe it's down to Mr. Musk. If he's going to keep on verbally agitating on his big social networking platform, then maybe there could be more fallout from this. I'd like to think that there would be. As I said, we've got 364 people who've just voted that they're okay with further harm being done to English girls. That's really what they've said. They said it's okay for people to rape and abuse English girls, which therefore should lead us to think, well, it's okay for you to be raped and abused then, isn't it? What's good for the goose is good for the gander? Or am I just being vile? This is terrible. You can't say it's such a terrible thing, but
No.
they can say such a terrible thing, can they?
I think it's like what they're doing down in is with the Israelis and saying it's okay to rape prisoners, men and women, and bragging about it on their television. Like it's normal behavior, and it's not, and they try to justify it. The people that are supportive of that regime down there, in your country and in my country, where they try to legitimize it, and that's they've got guilty consciences, and I think they know it, and they're being blackmailed. That's my thought on it.
Yeah.
Is everybody up for twatology? I'm sure I think we're all fully qualified in twatology. That's the recognising of twats in high office. So, we'd like to put some twats forward. I'm sure you've got plenty in America. So you up for that, Paul? Twatology on
Oh,
Sunday?
yeah, I think so. I mean, I think what's the events that are rolling out this month? I think obviously the inauguration of Mr. Trump really is a top twat.
Good bit of twatology there.
A top twat day, really. And
Will his wig stand up to it?
It's still, 11 days off, is it? Is it 20th?
Yes.
Is it the 20th?
20th. It's the 20th. Yeah.
Okay.
Are
So I
they
think a lot's going to
airlifting-
happen. A lot's going to happen between now and then.
And it's all show. They had,
Mm-hmm.
the whole January 6th uprising. All of this stuff was show. Because if it were real and they really thought it was an insurrection, they wouldn't have let him get to the point where he's at now. And it's funny because in order to qualify the vote, the final say was done by Kamala Harris, who was his opponent. She's the head of the Senate. She's the president of the Senate, being the vice president. So it's
Cool.
just,
So-
it's too odd.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
question for everybody's on resistance. Does Donald Trump use the same hairspray as the women astronauts use on the space station, where it all sort of stands up? I mean, are they
Or the same
I
diapers.
just wondered that. Yeah, it could be the same diapers. Yes, you never know. So, because isn't it amazing that when you see women on they call it the vomit comet, when they put a plane, they put it into a shallow dive, so they become weightless. Their hair is flying. Long-haired ladies get hair flung all over the place. Yet when they're in the space station, it stays in one position all the time. Isn't that weird?
And Sally
There we
writes
go.
in the chat, by the way, just hopping back to what we were talking about a few moments ago. How did the war generations, also known as my and your parents, never tell us about Dresden? I think, Aunt Sally, because it was never really fully broadcasted or communicated over here. I could be wrong about that. Obviously, people would have known about it, but it may well not. I don't think people
My parents did.
dwelled on it
Mine did.
to that degree.
I don't think they understood it. And
No.
the media was
Commentary.
controlled.
That's right. And Coventry, they always carried on about Coventry, which was like nothing compared with Dresden. But did you know that Churchill knew that Coventry was going to be bombed, but he let it go ahead because he didn't want the Germans to know that we've cracked the codes.
Well, when we
I've
get
listened
round
to a
to
lot of reports
when we
from
get
them.
to February, the 14th, I don't think this show falls on the 14th. But when we get around, whatever the nearest show is, we'll do a Dresden thing, because it's 80 years this year.
And that's one book that I want to read is the book that was done by Dave. Gosh, my mind's blank. The historian that you just
Tom.
did the
David Irving.
David Irving, right? His first book was on Dresden.
Oh yes, it
That's
was
one book that I would really like to read.
Yeah. I haven't read that one either, but no, I think that's the one that brought him to
And that
prominence.
was put out in the 60s.
Yeah,
It's on a
well,
Friday. It's on a Friday. Paul,
Well, the
so
Thursday
Thursday
before, the
show
day before.
will be
we'll do-
okay. And I'd like to do one as well on the Sunday, because I think that I did speak to a woman who was very, very young. She must have been about 3, I think it was, but she remembered it, even though she was very young at the time, and it affected her for the rest of her life. And I think that it was a war crime. That was a genuine Holocaust of horrendous, and
Dresden was.
Well,
yes.
they were
war
prepared
is-
to commit that war crime then, and they are, in a way, although it's not, well, it is in emotional intensity, it's just as vicious. They're committing a war crime on the British right now by allowing rape gangs to continue their practices. This whole thing is so disgusting, and it needs to be bigged up even more. I think there's a way of actually getting incumbent MPs recalled. You need something like 10% of the electorate. I'm going to try and spend some time looking at that. This is when it gets into that really boring, tedious stuff, doesn't it? And we all back off and nothing really happens.
The organizing.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's also so dry, and you just go, oh, good grief, and all that kind of stuff. But this is their great power. It's the same power that they have with the banking. It becomes so confusing and bewildering that literally you just go, ugh. Because it's designed to do that. It's designed to keep you away so that they can maintain control of it. But I think it's definitely worth looking into. So
And
anyway,
because at its core, it's a religion.
Yeah. So, Eric, your show, Twatology, is when? This Sunday? Is it? This coming Sunday?
This Sunday, yes. And so if there's any twatologists out there, we'd be very interested to
Mhm.
hear from them.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what would be interested. We got about a month to go. Maybe Katie Seven might know. It's doubtful there's any survivors alive today, but the sons and daughters of survivors, it'd be very nice to hear what they have to say, because we've been shut out of a lot of information in this country about what did happen in Dresden.
From Dresden?
Yeah, yeah. I just
There
wondered.
might be some that were toddlers.
Maybe
Yeah,
they
it
would
might be
in their
difficult that,
90s,
but I'd leave
would
that
be
with
di-
you.
No,
I
but
don't
I'm talking
think.
about sons and daughters.
Yeah.
That might be around. That would be interest, because I think that you got to be careful with emotions and things like that. But I think that as it's 80 years, that is a very special time, and my heart just goes out. I mean, horrendous. There's no
Well,
doubt.
I've come across the show I did with Tom Goodrich. I think it's 2017, and I'll probably replay it at some point on Soapbox. I might even upload it to my Rumble channel as well, because it's probably worth keeping it in a permanent place. I was listening to his voice the other day, and I thought, "Oh, Tom, why are you not around? I could have done with a good chat with you," but he's not. That's for later. But we did a really good. I thought it was pretty good. I'm a bit green. I'm a bit sort of, less bombastic than I am now, or certainly less coffee, but it's pretty good. It's a couple of hours. So I'm going to dig that up at the same time. I think we will cover it and have a look at it, and we can do a wide-ranging show about that, because it's always worthwhile recovering it. I've noticed actually on X an awful lot of posts, particularly addressing the real context for that conflict, are beginning to pop up at a rate of knots. Mads Palsvig, who someone links to regularly on the Telegram chat, thank you for that. He does a great deal on these things about recontextualizing stuff. I think to us here, none of it's new to me. It sounds cocky. I know most of this stuff. You don't need to know it to the nth degree. It's the key principles that we need to know.
It's been taboo, Paul. The thing about Dresden has been very taboo, because if you look at it historically, leading up to the war, leading up to the turn of the century, that it was the focal point and the capital of where they created what was known as the anti-Semitic party, and that was the proper name of it.
Yeah,
and that's the reason it was targeted.
Mm-hmm.
The leaders from that movement were all based in Dresden, for the most part.
Also, do you know where the largest Christian population of Japan?
Nagasaki.
Correct.
And Hiroshima.
Correct.
Absolutely. Guys, we're going to wrap up for now. We've gone past the top of the hour. I did a little sort of odd little test as well the other day. It was just me mucking about. It ended up sitting on the Rumble channel for about 45 minutes. It was me. I wasn't really intending to fly solo. I just ended up whittering on about things as I did. I'm planning, hopefully, though, to do something a bit more structured like that. So I'm looking at, during the weekdays, adding 1 or 2 slots, possibly Monday and or Wednesday and or Friday if I can get carried away. It's just a matter of finding the time. But probably UK drive time, which would be 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Or maybe I'll just do 5 to 6 to start off. There's so much good information coming through on the Telegram channel that I'd like to sort of gather it up a bit. And if we could get call-ins from you guys on the telephone or here or something, I know they don't tend to happen that often.
You could do it on Telegram, do the call-ins.
Yeah, maybe if you're on Telegram, we could take calls in that way and have a slightly more interactive thing with lots of different voices as opposed to the usual crew here. I'm thinking of something like that just to make it a bit livelier. It goes out under the label of the Slapdash Radio Show, and it probably will keep that because it will be quite a bit of slap and a lot of dash, I think. But I'll let you know, and I'm hoping to get that started this month, possibly even as soon as next week if I can find the time. That might be a bit of a pinch to do that, but I'll let you know. I just thought something winging it, almost not planned at all, apart from a lot of sort of news stories and stuff. This is actually slightly planned, by the way. I know it might not appear it, but it is in a way. So
comedy news, where we're actually being a bit sarcastic, because you can get a lot over with comedy. And I think something where we need a bit of more sarcasm.
Well, I used to be funny. I don't know how funny I can be on a Monday though. At 5 o'clock, I'm usually quite dull then. We'll do that. I'm sure there's some tablets we can take to really pep it up. Eric, I guess it's just I'm sure there's loads of things that we could cover, and I'm on for that. So I'll keep you posted, because we'll need a little rotating sort of group. I might not even be there to front it all the time, but I wanted to sort of like get a news show going, or at least try and give it a go for a few weeks and see what if it doesn't sit up, it doesn't sit up. But if it goes, it would be nice, because I keep finding I've got so many things that we haven't used tonight that could have been used, and they keep going down the. And they'd be useful to talk about, to flesh things out. Anyway, we're going to bring it to a close for tonight, because we're well past 11 o'clock now. Got a Jerry Rafferty song, which I must have played before in the past. I'm going to play us out with that. Get it right next time. Although he doesn't sing it in such a sort of commanding way. And hopefully we will get it right next time. Let's see what happens in the public spaces this week, with all our wonderful politicians wriggling around and just generally being the complete, ridiculous, traitorous arseholes that they are. They are detestable. Apart from the 111 that voted, or whatever it was, in favour of that, the rest of you, leave now and never come back. I just say that to the ether. It makes me feel better, if nothing else. God bless everyone for being here. Have a cracking week. Hopefully I'll be gone by next week, but you never know. This thing has lingered and lingered and lingered, and we'll see you all next Thursday. So go good. And if we get a show running at 5 to 7 during next week, I'll advertise it on Telegram and probably on the website, but it'll just happen. It might just happen. So if you're subscribed to this Rumble channel, you'll at least get the alert, but that's tentatively what we're looking to do. So keep you posted, and hopefully we can build up our stamina and do a bit more broadcasting every week. That's the aim. All right. Thanks, Paul. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Patrick, for this evening. Have a cracking week, and we'll see you all next week. Bye for now, everyone. Bye-bye. Night.
You shouldn't worry, I said that